everyone. My name is Bahija Raimi Abraham. It is my absolute pleasure and privilege as FIPWiSE Chair to welcome you to the inaugural FIPWiSE Global Online Summit 2026, Women Leading Pharmacy Through Global Challenges. We have an exceptional program ahead of us, bringing together global voices to amplify the resilience and transformative contributions of women in pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences. I'm very happy and honored to be co-chairing this summit alongside Catherine Duggan, and we are truly grateful that you have joined us today, and we look forward to an engaging and impactful program. So before we start, I'd like to share some announcements. So this webinar is being recorded and live streamed via YouTube. The recording will be available on our website, events.fip.org. You may ask questions during the question box provided, and you're also welcome to provide feedback at webinars@fip.org. And if you'd like to become a member of FIP or FIP, you can visit our website at fip.org/membership-registration. Sorry, just waiting for the slides. This is how you know it is definitely live. This isn't a pre-recording. Okay, so we also have a translation translation tool in Zoom. You can see there on the slide. So if you'd like to use this tool and follow the webinar in your own language, please turn on captions and enable the translation toggle. And then you can choose your preferred language under My Caption Language, and then you can follow along with the live translated captions. Now, this event is a 3-hour, highly interactive and discussion-driven event. So we don't want this to be a passive experience for you. So throughout the different segments, you'll be invited to respond to short questions using shared links. So please keep those ready and take part when prompted. You're also encouraged to use the chat and the Q&A box to share reflections, respond to speakers, and pose questions. Your voice is an important part of today's conversation as well. So we really want to hear from you. Okay, so now I just want to sort of, set the scene. Just let's ground ourselves as to why we are here. So a little bit about FIP Women in Science and Education, otherwise known as FIPWiSE. So this is an initiative that was launched 6 years ago on the 11th of February 2020 on the United Nations International Day of Women and Girls in Science. FIPWiSE gathers experts from around the world to identify the needs and inequities that's faced by women in these domains, offering timely, achievable, and sustainable solutions. Its activities are delivered by a chair and an international group of volunteer women in science and education. So this map, which is just a joy to see, shows the different countries where our FIPWiSE members are from. And so you can see that they'll be bringing diverse experiences, perspectives, and input to the group. And at this point, I would really just like to take a moment to sincerely thank all the FIPWiSE members, the past, the present, and maybe even the future, but the past and present for their commitment, insight, and dedication. This initiative, FIPWiSE, exists because of your voluntary leadership, your time, and your belief that equity in our profession is not optional, but essential. We'll tell you more about the FIP Equity RX program and the FIPWiSE initiative in the second segment of this summit. So please do stay tuned. So what brings us here today is the UN International Day of Women and Girls in Science. 2026. So that's the date is usually February 11th, yesterday. And that also marks the FIPWiSE 6th anniversary. So each year there's a theme for the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. And this year, the UN chose the theme synthesizing AI, social science, STEM, and finance, building inclusive futures for women and girls. This alignment is not accidental. It reflects also our commitment. And sorry, just saying that with the theme, it's also the same day, as we said 6 years ago, that FIP FIPWiSE was launched. And so the alignment of why we're celebrating around this time is not accidental. It also reflects our continued commitment to advancing equity, leadership, and representation in pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences. So, as mentioned, with the theme being synthesizing AI, social science, STEM, finance, and building inclusive futures for women and girls, well, it's particularly timely. So, as we can see already, AI is transforming health systems, research, and innovation at pace. Social science helps to bring those technological advances and equitable responses to real world contexts. STEM provides the technical foundation for discovery and implementation, and finance determines which ideas are supported, scaled, and sustained. When these domains operate separately, inequities widen. But when they are intentionally aligned, they can create inclusive and sustainable systems. Now, pharmacy and pharmaceutical science, science and education sits directly at the intersection of all four pillars. We work in science, in technology, in policy, in education, and within complex health systems that depend on equitable financing and governance. So this summit is not simply a celebration of women in science. It's also a recognition that women in pharmacy are already leading across these interconnected systems and that their leadership is essential in shaping inclusive futures in global health. So as we celebrate FIPWiSE's 6th anniversary, sounds so lovely to say that, as we celebrate this through our FIPWiSE Global Online Summit, our inaugural summit for 2026, Women Leading Pharmacy Through Global Challenges. We honor the progress that's been made with FIPWiSE since its inception. We also recognize the challenges. We recognize challenges ahead, but the resilience that's required to overcome them. And what we're trying to do here today is create space for stories that inspire and for future focused dialogue that moves us from inspiration through to action. Next slide, please. So this kind of ties into the summit objectives. So the summit today, we aim to identify global imperatives for gender equity, health, and education, and recognize how the pharmacy profession can contribute to advancing these priorities. We're then looking to try and highlight the progress that's been made since the Beijing Declaration 1995 to 2025, so that's about 30 years, and how it informs ongoing advocacy for gender equity and leadership globally. We want to reflect on the last 6 years of FIPWiSE and evaluate what its impact in fostering leadership, growth, and empowerment for women in pharmacy and pharmaceutical science has been. We want to highlight women's contributions into science, innovation, and health in alignment with the UN's International Day of Women and Girls in Science. And last but not least, we want to commit to actionable steps through the FIPWiSE commitment to women in pharmacy and society and propose ways to strengthen gender equity, resilience, and inclusive leadership.
Did we lose Bahija? I think we lost Bahija, so I'll just take over and continue with the agenda. So for today, the agenda of the summit is as follows, and we'll be starting with the opening remarks and housekeeping announcements that were already done by Bahija. We're going to move on to a global dialogue with 3 of our esteemed panelists joining us today. Then we're going to move on to celebrating 6 years of FIPWiSE with some words from Bahija again as FIPWiSE chair. And then with that, we'll move on to hearing some stories in the 4th segment of the summit, Voices of Resilience, and then using these stories to reflect in the 5th segment in a future-focused dialogue from inspiration to action. And with that, we'll end the summit with closing remarks and the FIPWiSE commitment to women. I would like to hand over to our CEO, Catherine Duggan, for her reflections. Thank you so much, Catherine.
Thanks a million, Noor. And thanks a million to Bahija for her introductory remarks. I hope she can join us again very, very soon. As she said, it's always very interesting when we run live events to see how tech supports us. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you, wherever you are joining us from, both live and if you are listening to this and watching this after the event. As Noor has said, I'm Catherine Duggan. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the International Pharmaceutical Federation, and today I am delighted to join you in celebrating the International Day of Women and Girls in Science, which was the UN Day yesterday, and also as we mark the 6th anniversary of FIP Women in Science and Education, or as we refer to it, FIPWiSE. This is truly a moment to recognise the essential role that women and girls play in advancing science, education and health, and to celebrate their contributions across pharmacy and the pharmaceutical sciences. And for each of us to take a moment to pause and reflect on our own journeys in that role, whether we are women in science and education or supporters of women in science and education. I also wish to acknowledge the essential role that so many wise women have played so far, particularly to acknowledge Professor Claire Thompson and her leadership in the early days and years of FIPWiSE. Claire can't join us live today, but we send her our thanks and best regards as such a leader in women in pharmacy, as well as an acknowledged leader in STEM innovation and health, a true FIP FIPWiSE ambassador. Colleagues, it's been over 30 years since the launch of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, 1995. We should take a moment to think how far we have come from that, but also just how far we have to go. It's considered to be one of the most progressive blueprints for advancing women's rights, and today, and we still haven't achieved all of the women's rights we wish to. The Beijing Declaration continues to guide and inspire action to advance gender equity and equality and the human rights of women and girls everywhere. And we're reminded daily that equity in science and education is not optional, it is fundamental to innovation, to stronger health systems and better outcomes for our communities. At FIP, we're committed to advancing equity and inclusion across our profession. Through our Equity RX programme and the FIPWiSE initiative, we're working to break down barriers, amplify women's voices and create opportunities for leadership, mentorship and growth. So today, it's not just about celebrating achievements, it's also about action and listening. And it's about identifying what still needs to be done to ensure that women and girls in pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences have the support and recognition and opportunities they deserve across our world. As we celebrate this important day and our wonderful FIPWiSE community, I encourage you to recognise the women and girls around you. Reflect on how we can all contribute to a more inclusive future and continue to champion gender equity in science, in pharmacy and beyond. So before we dive into the summit, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the team behind FIP Equity RX programme and the FIPWiSE initiative. Thank you, team. It has been a truly complex task of organising this first of its kind FIPWiSE online summit, online so that we ensure we increase access to the event and equity of access, but also just to offer you a different kind of event. From start to finish, this has been a team effort. I'm really proud of what we will deliver today. Ahead of the case, it may be our first summit of this kind, but much of what we have built and prepared will be reused and strengthened for years to come. We like to pride ourselves as a team on trying new things out, and if they work, we then spread that all the way through our team. Particularly on this special day, a special mention to Aisha, our intern. She has played a pivotal role in making this happen, and it shows everybody how everyone can step into a leadership role. Aisha, thank you so much for all your hard work. A special mention to Noor, who took on this enormous coordination and planning immediately after returning from maternity leave. Noor, you've handled it with such grace and patience. We're truly thrilled to have you back in the driving seat. And as Dahlia knows, shoulder to shoulder with me from the initial brainstorming, which paved the way for us today. Dahlia, a rock upon which our team is built. Congratulations to all of you. I also just want to mention the wider team. We have an amazing team at FIP, and today you see some of the team visibly and invisibly alongside the communications, the marketing, the tech team. But Marita and Albana, you're here with us. You always stand in support in leadership and empowerment. And how could I fail to recognise all my colleagues from the FIP Bureau, those who join us today, the fabulous Louise and Nauko. No pressure, but we will see more of both of you during this event. Thanks a million. Now we start with the first segment of this summit, a global dialogue with our esteemed panelists from different international organisations, from different backgrounds, from different perspectives, and all with stories to inspire us. That's what we need: stories, case studies, evidence, but from a descriptive and qualitative perspective. I'm looking forward to this. And with me today, the aforementioned wonderful Louise Lorenzo. Louise is the FIP Professional Secretary and a member of our FIP Bureau. It's great, Louise, to have you here today, and I'm going to hand over to you to introduce yourself and to start our discussion.
Thank you so much, Catherine, first of all, for the kind invitation and for your kind words as well. It's an honor and a privilege to be here today with just amazing people. Actually, probably I'm one of the few males here, but anyway, I'll do my best just to support you all for your amazing work. So if we move forward with the next slide, you'll see that today, well, first of all, thank you all for joining us on this special next day, since, you know, we have yesterday the celebration of the UN Day of Women in Science. Anyway, before we begin, I would like to share some words on this special occasion for my colleagues at the FIP Bureau. So I have a video here to share with all of you.
Forward with women in pharmacy, forward with pharmacy, forward with FIP.
Forward with women, forward with pharmacy, forward with FIP.
Forward with women, forward with pharmacy, forward with FIP.
Forward with women in pharmacy, forward with pharmacy, and forward with FIP.
Forward with women in pharmacy, forward with pharmacy, forward with FIP.
Forward with women, forward with pharmacy, and forward with FIP.
Forward with women, forward with pharmacy, forward with FIP.
Forward with women in pharmacy, forward with pharmacy, forward with FIP.
Forward with women, forward with pharmacy, forward with FIP.
Forward with women, forward with pharmacy, forward with FIP.
Forward with women, forward with pharmacy, forward with FIP.
There you go. By the way, I was very serious, but I'm happy with the celebration, by the way. So everyone should know that it was an interesting moment for all of us at the FIP Bureau just to address some words for this special occasion. So as for this segment, the main focus for this discussion is identifying global imperatives for gender equity, health, and education, and how pharmacy can contribute to shared global goals. Today, we have some panelists joining us this segment, which are Ghislaine Boyle, Associate Dean of Students' Success and Practice Transformation, Northeast Ohio Medical University, USA; Giselle Abam, the Chair of the General Pharmaceutical Council in Great Britain; and Rupert Dutt, Clinical Assistant Professor, Stanford University School of Medicine. But before we start, I would like to ask the audience to join the conversation and answer the question on screen. In one word, what does today represent for you? Please scan the QR code or use the link and code on the screen to respond to this question. Please let us know if you have any technical issue accessing the Mentimeter. And now you're going to start our panel discussion. So I'll do a double act here today. It's my privilege as well to do this double act with Catherine. So we'll just go through some questions to our panelists. So I might start with Jesslyn and then with a question. Listen, you are here already, I presume so. So you have intentionally designed a non-traditional career path in pharmacy, combining coaching, education, practice development, and entrepreneurship. What gaps did you experience in pharmacy education or early practice that pushed you to design your own path?
Well, first of all, just thank you so much for being having me here, for being here. I was messaging my student who's here with me and said, I didn't know I'd be crying this early in the morning in the US, but I feel so honored to be here. And I'd love to share a little bit more about why I dove into the area of practice that I did. When I became a pharmacist, I started out in education and ambulatory care. So I worked in physician offices, but I also taught during that time. And I quickly realized a bunch of different things about me, but also what I saw in the need in our profession in many different ways. Early in my career, I had the opportunity to serve on a Women in Leadership Steering Committee. I was about 3 years into practice. I remember walking into that room and thinking, how am I even here? There were women from across my country who were at all stages of their career. And that was the eye-opening moment for me to realize that some of the barriers that I thought were of decades ago were still very much in existence. I then started experiencing those barriers myself in my career, saw my colleagues experiencing them as well, and then started reading the literature about all of the gaps in equity that existed across the entire globe. Not only that, but I saw that our profession could benefit from more innovation and entrepreneurship. I saw the opportunity that pharmacists had to close gaps in healthcare, and also the opportunities that women had to close gaps in equity. So with that in mind, I thought, I wonder if I can contribute in a different way. And I looked for opportunities to use those skills to help others be successful, but also use our collective voices to move the needle like we are today. So while I didn't know coaching was a thing that pharmacists could do, I gratefully was able to combine it with my role in education, my role in practice, and really aim to impact all the areas of pharmacy, including closing those equity gaps that I saw, experienced, and heard about as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your openness and just to share your experience. And I move forward now with a question to Gisela. You have been a trailblazer in many of your roles, creating new functions, influencing global health policy, and leading at the highest levels across regulation, industry, and governance. What does inclusive leadership mean to you when decisions have real system-wide impact?
Thank you so much as well. And I want to say hello to my fellow panelists, and Rupa, it's been a long while since we've seen each other. But I want to say thank you so much for being here today before I answer the question as well. And say, even though I'm not a pharmacist, as chair of the regulator for pharmacy, pharmacy has played an important role in my life. And really, it's important that you have this session today to see how we can get more women in leadership and help to promote the profession. So I'll say for myself, in terms of inclusive leadership, it means actively seeking and valuing diverse perspectives to ensure that all voices are heard. And that's one of the things that I've done in relation to inclusive leadership, that really hearing the different perspectives, the different opinions, bringing all parties to the table to ensure that the decision-making process is inclusive. And that means having women on boards, women in leadership, women in strategic positions that enable change to happen. And without that, we won't achieve equity. So the collaboration is really important, looking at what systemic change is needed and ensuring that all the key points and areas where change is needed within pharmacy, women play a part. And the other part is also ensuring that collaboration with doctors, with nurses, and other professions, because together we make the healthcare system. And having women being part of that ecosystem is really important, which then demonstrates inclusive leadership. And I'll say that one of the reasons why I actually took this role is exactly for that reason, that most of the forum and meetings and high-level engagement I attended, I hardly ever saw a pharmacist there. And yet, we rely on pharmacy all the time. When my daughter was born premature, I'm just digressing, I relied on my local pharmacist all the time. And I said, why don't they have a seat at the table? They are part of the healthcare system. They do so much. So this is great. So being in my role, being the first female chair for the regulator in UK for pharmacy, I feel that it's my duty to see how I can get more women leaders in the profession.
Lovely. Thank you so much for sharing your professional experience and also your personal experience. I think all of us, either we are pharmacists or non-pharmacists, we do have a great story with the pharmacists who actually have assisted us in a time of need, which is really, really inspiring to all of us. So I'll move forward now to Rupa. From your perspective, where do you see pharmacists, particularly women pharmacists, playing the most critical yet underutilized role in advancing equitable access to care within health systems?
Yeah, thank you. And I also have to kick off by just really acknowledging that I am really excited to be here. And I commend the leadership, especially of Catherine and her whole team that I've had the really the privilege to collaborate with over the last decade on these issues. And it's just great to see the summit kick off and this platform. So you've asked a really important, critical question, Luis, and I'm building on what's been said by Gisela and Jacqueline, is that, when we take a look at the field of medicine and health, women make up 70% of that health and care workforce. So we don't have the same talent pipeline issues that some other sectors do. And even in STEM, we know that the talent pipeline is still an issue. Only 30% of students around the world are girls going into STEM. But fortunately for the field of pharmacy, there are so many women entering the field. So that I think is like a huge, huge plus for us. But when you take a look at the leadership roles more widely in the health sector, we see that number quickly dwindling down to 25%. And especially when it enters in places such as the private sector, the Fortune 500 companies, particularly focusing on the pharmaceutical industry there, we see women's representation dropping down to 5% of being head of CEOs. So I think that's one huge opportunity is we need to have women leading at the highest levels, especially in the private sector and in the industries that are shaping our health. I think the second area, as you said, about equitable access, we know that pharmacists and women pharmacists are in their communities, and they're often a point of service. As Gisela pointed out her own personal story, I have my own from growing up in dualities. I'm Indian and here in the US, and I saw the differences. But in India, we call it the chemist, the pharmacist, was often where people went to first to try to figure out what was going on and what should be the treatment, because we know that 5 billion people around the world do not have access to universal health coverage. We know that how cost prohibitive access to medicine is. And we know that primary health care is going to be the most critical in serving our communities. And some of the opportunities I do see for women in pharmacy is particularly having leadership roles in those conversations around how do we improve access to medications, how do we get primary health care stronger, and how do we make it much more equitable. But I would say women in pharmacy must be at decision making at all levels of our health systems and more broadly policy making.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your input. And now I'm going to give the floor to Catherine just to keep on going with the discussion. Catherine?
Thank you so much. A quick note to colleagues who are attending this live. Many of our panelists are working in ungodly hours to be with us today. I happen to know, Rupa, it's the middle of the night for you, and I'm pretty sure that anyone else in the US, it's very tough, especially on the West Coast. But additionally, those colleagues in Western Pacific, Australia, you're heading into the very late hours as well. So it's a little point of note that our colleagues here today are not only just helping us out with the conversations, but they are working at the ends of their clocks, if you like. Now, I've got a question for our three panelists as well. I'm going to start with Jacqueline. Jacqueline, I'm so sorry that we've brought you to tears, but I hope they're happy tears. And I hope that I can be responsible for many of them, let me tell you. Much of your work focuses on supporting women in leadership and addressing inequities in STEM and healthcare. And you've told us some of that, and I'm delighted that you have a colleague here with you to witness your strengths and experience. But from that very experience, what are the most common barriers you found that women face and what practical strategies actually help them move forward?
Yeah, thank you so much for this question. And we can probably spend a whole hour just talking about this one, but I tried to narrow it down to a few big barriers that I think we could focus on or hone in on for this morning. So the first one, my colleague, Dr. Rupa, already mentioned was the representation of leadership at especially higher levels of healthcare administration. We see this across industries, the broken rung of moving up to that first step of manager disproportionately impacts women and even further disproportionately impacts women of color. And so with that in mind, getting that first promotion to a manager role is critical. And in this process, we need to do better in helping women understand how they get promoted. We need structured, transparent, equitable promotion processes. We need to be tracking promotion data to identify these gaps in the pipeline early on. We need to be hearing from women. Why are you opting out of that promotion option? And we actually have data in the US to show that women who are in their early career at higher rates are saying, you know what, it's not worth it. I'm going to opt out early. I don't know if this is the path for me. So we need to create workplaces and criteria that allow for that transparency, but also foster a place that women can work and also thrive in the rest of their life. Another gap that does exist, although it's narrower in healthcare, is the gender pay gap. And we track this in a bunch of different places, but globally, women earn about 83 cents for every dollar earned by their male counterparts. And this gap persists across sectors and widens over the course of a career if left unaddressed. And so what we can encourage employers to do is conduct regular pay audits. Is your compensation process equitable? Do we have transparent payment policies and compensation policies within the organization? Do we have incentives and accountability metrics that talk about closing those pay gaps and helping with progression? And just advocating for those policies to be in place so that compensation is transparent and that there isn't any discrimination going on. The last one I'll focus in on this morning is work-life integration and caregiving demands. Women still shoulder a disproportionate share of unpaid caregiving and household responsibilities across all sectors. And so with that in mind, that might impact their ability to work long hours, travel a lot, take on stretch assignments, and sometimes those very things are connected to their advancement. So in our field where we have unpredictable workloads, we have heavy workloads sometimes, or schedules that might not accommodate life outside of work, these pressures can take an extra toll on women who are carrying a majority of those responsibilities. So what we can do about that, we can offer flexible work arrangements. Many companies have flexible work policies, but they should be able to be deployed without penalty to someone's career. Additionally, we need equitable parental leave for all caregivers. Further, we can implement structured return to work support programs when individuals are taking breaks from their work to care for a loved one and returning back to work. We need systems that maintain visibility of women and advancement pathways that don't penalize them for taking advantage of flexible work policies when they are implemented, and additionally supporting childcare and elder care and family leave needs.
I have a lot to say on those reflections, I have to say, Jacqueline, and I think it's really important that speaking for myself, for example, I don't have children of my own, but I have a stepdaughter, now a step-grandchild, and I also have parents and families. And I think when we talk about families in the context of women, we don't always explore the impact of care with that. And Jacqueline, just a couple of further reflections that I'd love people to think about as we go into the next panels. Some people really seek promotion by going the extra mile and doing almost far too many hours, and that becomes unsustainable when you then have other familial pressures. So I'm also very conscious of offering flexible working, which would then just be more hours for you to work. So we need to really understand that better. But thank you so much, Jacqueline. I'll pause there because you and I could probably talk for the 3 hours. I know I could. And I move on to a very dear friend of mine, Rupa. It's great to have you with us on the call. And I do understand it's the middle of the night for you as well. So thank you so much. But Rupa, I have a question. Again, you and I could talk for hours and hours on this summit alone, but based on your journey, Rupa, working closely with health professionals across regions, and we know that you're not a pharmacist yourself, but there's so much of this is shared across professions. This is not about being professionally siloed here. How can pharmacy organisations, including ourselves at FIP, and institutions, including universities, but also employers of health workers, healthcare professionals, ensure that pharmacists' lived experiences, especially of those of women, but I don't want to be exclusive about that either. This is not about pushing women for the detriment of men. It's about having an equitable view of everything. How do you think these can meaningfully inform policy, leadership, and practice decisions? Rupa, delighted to have you here.
Yeah, Catherine, totally agree. We're overdue for a catch up. Well, I'm going to first really just acknowledge that women in pharmacy and more broadly FIP and pharmacists that are members of the organization have been showing up on global advocacy at the highest levels at the United Nations, at the World Health Organization. And I've had the privilege to be able to collaborate and plot with you, Catherine, especially when I co-founded Women in Global Health, which is now present in 70 different countries. And I serve as the executive director at Merida. And I'm going to pull some of the work that we did that FIP also contributed to when we co-chaired the Gender Equity Hub in the Global Health Workforce Network at the World Health Organization. And I think this is really foundational work, and it's relevant today as much as it was when it was launched. And it is, I think, even more an opportunity when we are seeing a pushback on the agenda of equity. We know that a lot of that is coming out from the country that I'm currently in, and it's unfortunate that it has consumed so many of the airways across the globe, that we should not be talking about issues of advancing women, advancing equity, using intersectionality. These are actually taboo words in the context of most academic and research institutions here in the United States, but we know that ripple effect is all around the world. So this is the opportunity for FIP to have continued global leadership and hold the line, is what we say in the women's rights and activist world, that these concepts are not just theories, but they've actually made our societies more equitable for all, better for all. And we say that gender equality benefits all genders. So I think really grounding it and continuing to, I think, not only be an organization of advocacy, but really thinking about when more active activism is needed to ensure the hard work and the collective action that's taken to create a lot of these initiatives. So FIP, I encourage you to continue to be a global voice on this, but for all the national organizations that are part of your network, to be even a stronger voice and to keep ensuring that your institutions, your partners are prioritizing having gender equity and having broader equity. The second thing is there's still a lot of work to do on social norms. And I know, Jacqueline, you talked a little bit about, parental leave. I think that's critical. And we talked a lot about why there was a lot of achievements in the top countries where they're rated highly on gender equality. Is what they do is they not only make parental leave available, but they have policies that encourage men to take it, so that we see caretaking as a role and responsibility of all members of society. And men are caretakers, and we need to encourage our boys to grow into being caretakers. We create families together. It's not just a creation by women, right? So let's take shared responsibility and transform our social norms, which are going to take decades and maybe still centuries per some of the global estimates of how long it's going to take us to get gender equality. And I think the third thing that I'm going to highlight, which, just building on a lot of what's already been said by colleagues, is really addressing the root reasons why women will not, go for some of the leadership roles, will not go for some of the work opportunities. This especially is a reality for those that are in what I consider frontline roles or patient-facing roles, is that we see a very high level of workplace harassment, violence, sexual harassment, even sexual assault for women in the health and care workforce. And that's something that our health systems are just not capturing. It's a taboo topic, but we have done a report at Women in Global Health looking at countries Kenya, India, Nigeria, and what we found across the board in those three countries, complementing another international report that looked at more high income settings like the UK, US, Canada, and Australia, is that at least 60 to 70% of women in the health and care sector are reporting sexual harassment, and especially in training. It means that they will also avoid taking night shifts. It means that they will avoid going to rural places because there's just maybe not a safe environment. And we have to acknowledge, when we're really having this global conversation, that issues of violence are universal, and they are even present in high numbers in countries such as that are often rated high. We know Sunday is often considered, unfortunately, the most deadliest day for women because of the nature that most places are closed and they're at home. So we have to acknowledge that the safety of women is, while I'm talking about workplace, it's also important to talk about broader issues that affect women's safety altogether. And these are key issues that are impairing us from achieving gender equality.
Yes, I think, Rupa, we shouldn't divide out the safety issues into places. We should just talk about safety, full stop. And then it's just through the lens of where a woman is, whether it's at home, at work, anywhere, walking on the streets, the whole thing. I think you raise a really good point. And I just want to mention, colleagues, that sometimes we feel we have an authority to speak or work because we're working with global organizations, whereas actually we need to become activists within our own organizations. And if leadership changes in the organizations we're working with, that then doesn't prevent us from continuing with our work. So I just want to put that out there. I know that in many of our countries, the geopolitical environment can be quite tough at the moment when you have people who step away from believing in equity of all types. So we just need to be strong and create alliances that hold true to our values with that. And Rupa, you've always done that. So I thank you very much. And I'm going to go to Gisela, and I have to be particularly nice to you, Gisela, I always would be, as the chair of my regulator, the GPHC. But Gisela, what a powerful story you told us right at the beginning there. I'm really delighted you're with us today. My question for you, Gisela, is, and it really links to what I was mentioning earlier on, having worked with governments, regulators and global institutions, where we sometimes see the leadership changing and then the way in which we can align with that changing. What do you believe is the most powerful lever for driving sustainable change towards equity in health systems, and of course today with that idea of gender equity, and then most specifically in pharmacy, from your observations of us as a profession? Thank you so much.
It's an interesting question, and yes, you see a lot. So I would say accountability through systems. It's really being able to use the data to inform decision making. And when I say use the data, when you employ people looking at what women are doing, what the men are doing, the balance of it, when you're looking at leadership, promotion, even recruitment practices, it's important that there's fairness and equity across the system. The data is not always used as part of a lever, and I think it's really important that that's part of it. So as a regulator, for example, we ensure that we have, when we developed our strategy, we have equality as part of the golden thread. So each of our strategic objectives, how do we have a gender lens? How do we ensure there's equity so both women and men have the opportunity to go for certain areas and have that targeted engagement with us? Those are the kind of things that globally is really important. We also think about sustainable change in terms of when a new system is being designed, that equity is added as part of it in terms of the policy, not later, because once it's embedded as part of the system, it becomes automatic rather than an add-on, because you see a lot of policies and strategy, even at pharmacy level, when they're talking about leadership, they don't think about the fact that we have a lot of women who've actually achieved a lot. How do we then look at ensuring that they have career opportunities, promotions. But if that's not part of the baseline or discussion, it ends up becoming an add-on when people maybe complain or people say, oh, what's happening in this particular organization? And so for us, apart from that, we've developed champions for EDI as part of the work we do as a regulator. This is no credit to us, but there's a female leadership network for pharmacy, which has been set up, and I'm speaking to them in a few weeks' time and saying if there's any way as the regulator can support them, we'll be happy to support them as well. Again, in our recruitment as well, we're now looking more closely to ensure that there's a balance in terms of leadership positions. And interestingly enough, now as the regulator, we have more female senior leaders than men, I think for the first time. So which is really interesting because we opened up our recruitment in terms of the questions and everything, and we anonymized the first steps, and we got more women getting through than men. Incidentally, doesn't mean that men are good, but what I'm trying to say is because we have a lot more women in the profession and who have the experience and capability, you realize that if there's fairness, you end up getting that equal balance moving up as well. So really it's about data, it's about having accountability in the system and ensuring that those levers are used at all levels as well. Thank you.
It's so great. I think, Gisela, everybody on this call can reflect on the observations you've made there and the idea that sometimes using an anonymous system really does open up the access piece. Lovely. I'm really, really happy. Louise, I hand back to you for the next set of questions, and then I think I take the final set. That's how we're playing our tennis game today.
That's it. That's it. And it's been a good match, I think. And on a personal note, I have to thank you all for the time that you're taking, and especially those who are in the very unusual time zones, because one of the thrills of being the professional secretary is be able just to learn so much from our speakers, for people who are engaged. So thank you so much again for your time and for your availability to be here today. So as Catherine has mentioned, I'll go through another round of questions, and I'll give back the floor to Catherine to have a final question to all our panelists. So I will start with Jacqueline. So you work closely with individuals, teams, and pharmacists to unlock potential and drive change. What advice would you give pharmacists who feel constrained by traditional career paths, but want to make a broader impact? That's a good question.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I've had the fortune of working with many different healthcare professionals outside of pharmacy too. And I think these challenges are not unique, as was mentioned earlier. But in the process, we also see data that women tend to count themselves out of job opportunities far earlier than our male counterparts. We wait until we're 110% qualified and meet all the check boxes on a job description, where our male counterparts will often apply when they meet about 60% of those qualifications. And so a lot of things that we can do very tangibly is to identify transferable skills. While you might not meet all of the, line by line exact qualities that a job description is looking for, you likely have skills and experiences that you haven't accounted for yet that are transferable, and realize that that is basically like a dream list of what the employer is looking for. If they got 100% of those qualifications every time, it would be an easy job search for them. But hiring on potential rather than always meeting all of the job descriptions, I think is a huge barrier for women to realize that they can work for those stretch goals. They can work towards meeting those qualifications. They are brilliant, and they have the capacity to learn and grow, and even have those trainings or certifications or skills included later. Additionally, every healthcare provider I've ever worked with so far has not documented their measurable impact that they've had in their organization. They often can tell me about it, but they haven't actually tangibly sat down and said, okay, how much cost savings or revenue growth have I had for the organization? What are the outcomes that I'm contributing to every day on a clinical or patient safety basis? What projects have I worked on, and how have they moved the needle for the organization. So I think sitting down or having someone sit down with you, because we often don't have this time carved out at work, having someone sit down with you and say, okay, let's do a brain dump of everything you've done and actually quantify it so you can articulate it to that next employer. I think another thing we see is that women sometimes aren't included in mentorship or sponsorship opportunities. So building their network in a very strategic way can be helpful in helping them navigate to those opportunities that seem out of reach. And then the last two things, I think we could take a step back and say, well, what do I really want out of my career? What do I want out of this life? And how does my career fit into it? What energizes me? And getting really clear on that can be helpful as you identify both the opportunities that fit with that season of your life, but then opportunities that don't, right? And what you should be saying no to. So those are a few things that really come to mind.
Thank you so much. Very practical issues with, well, a lot of food for thought. Thank you so much, Jesslyn. So I move forward now to Rupa. So looking back on your own journey, what experiences most shaped how you approach leadership and advocacy today? And what lessons do you think are specifically relevant for women in pharmacy navigating their careers right now? So a little bit of your personal experience, Rupa. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Well, I'm going to highlight three main things. I think the first thing is just to acknowledge that we all have a very personal journey to how we became our whatever profession we're having, right? So for me, it was growing up in dualities, and I mentioned this earlier in the conversation. I was born in India, but came to the United States when I was 5. And unfortunately, at the age of 9, I was able to experience myself personally the wide health inequities that exist around the world. I got very ill at the age of 9 in India. I was fortunate that there was a pediatric surgeon that could save my life, but I saw what the health systems at that point in India looked like, and take a flight that time 20 hours later, end up in California, and have a completely different experience. And we still know we have health access issues here in the United States, but that really shaped my overall as a child, a commitment to working on health and ensuring that, regardless of where we're born, we must be able to have access to decent health. And that's been a core value, and it instilled in me a quest for being both a professional grounded in science and medicine, but also being a activated citizen and working on building my social justice skills. So that takes me to the second area that's really shaped me. I have always been moved by the power of collective action. I started doing that as a student. So for those of us that are here working with young people, trainees, or those, if there are trainees joining today, that's even more exciting. Be a part of networks and be engaged and be committed to them for the long term, because it's been really this power of networks that are activated and really the most, I think, changing networks are called movements. And I had a really great, wonderful opportunity to co-create with 3 other early career women over a decade ago, a global movement called Women in Global Health, the fastest growing women's movement in health in 70 different countries. And that really showed me what we can achieve when we link up together under one umbrella of all women in health and allies, so men and all genders welcome, to really call for gender equitable health systems in society. And then I think the third thing is a little bit more grounded in my everyday reality. So right now I'm a clinician. I've always been practicing clinically, but I'm also a assistant professor. I'm part of a big institution. And I find myself, still seeing the same pattern that inspired me to start Women in Global Health over a decade ago, which is women deliver health and men lead it. And around me, the institution still has a lot of work, and even in my own division and department. So what I see is that we must continue to fix systems and not women. And a lot of what we can do, while we can advocate at the highest levels, and that's been a big part of my, I would say, the last 2 decades of my life, I'm really focused on local action and being part of how do do we transform our communities and societies and are the institutions that we're part of to really look at this as a systems issue and to go beyond saying, hey, women, fix yourself. All you need is more confidence. All you need to do is lean in, when we're not acknowledging that women have so much added care burden and they have so many other responsibilities and they're in hostile workplaces, often facing a lot of harassment and microaggressions, and we can go on and all that research, and they're getting paid less for that work. And we're saying, hey, why aren't you showing up and why aren't you leading? And you could have applied. And I think we really do need to say, what are we doing to fix the systems? And it starts incredibly early. I'm also a mother who's of a 4-year-old, one of my greatest honors in life, and I'm learning so much about how things start at so early in education, even before they get to primary school. And I think there's opportunities in every part of our life to say, are we applying this equity lens not only as an outward message, but in the networks and communities, even our religious communities, to ensure that we truly are transforming systems. And I would say those are the 3 things that I highlight.
Thank you so much. Very inspiring thoughts. And we move forward to our last question directly to Gisela. And I ask you just to be as concise as possible. I'm so sorry for this, but we could be talking hours for all of this, but the time is running. So my question would be, what responsibilities do senior leaders and regulators have in shaping more diverse and equitable pathways into leadership in pharmacy? Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's really interesting to give you a little bit of background why I see it as being so critical and important. First of all, I went into healthcare accidentally only because there are 2 things that happened to me. I was involved in a car accident. I was told I couldn't walk without crutches. I had to go privately for treatment. And then I was in and out of hospital for about 6 months. We didn't know what was wrong. And one day, my family just said, you know what, let's just go privately. We went privately. Within 2 hours of tests, I was diagnosed with endometriosis and a blocked kidney as a result of that, which was completely damaged and had to be removed. And it was then I had been working in local government in policy and strategy. I said, I want to become a health advocate because I realized that health is central to everything that you do. My whole life was turned upside down with those 2 instances, that you can have everything, but if you don't have health, you don't have wealth, you don't have stability, you don't have a good quality of life. So I said, I want to now focus on becoming a health advocate, make a difference to health systems. So I started by working with the body called NICE in UK, which actually decides what medicines and technologies get into the health system. And then I helped set up the Center for Public Health Excellence, where we did guidance. And then I worked in a global company, which obviously manufactured medical technologies, and worked with WHO, which I still do, World Bank and other governments around the world. So I start by saying this because it's important that if we know that health is so critical to people's well-being, then for us who are in the healthcare system, we have to ensure that the same equity that we're trying to do externally should be done within the systems, ensuring that there's equity for women, there's equity for people of color, and all different variations, and that we work together across the board to achieve the goals. Because without coming together, we are never going to achieve better health outcomes. You know, there are so many areas where we're siloed. Pharmacy plays a critical role, you know, for all of this. And I'm happy that, I mean, in UK, we're trying to work more closely with the doctors because we said we complement each other. We shouldn't be fighting with each other. We have the same purpose. And so as a regulator as well, for me, it's important that we clean inside. We ensure that what we're trying to project outside, we don't end up having the same issues. One of the challenges that we see as well, why it's really important, is mental health. When the WHO had their first meeting, global meeting about mental health, across the world, very few countries had any system that tackled mental health. In UK, we can't cope with it. So many young people are suffering from it. And the same professionals who are day in, day out, working with patients in the public and pharmacy, if they do not have that support, it can affect their mental health. So even from that perspective, it's important and critical that we ensure that we do our best as leaders to open up the discussion, to ensure that there's equity and ensure that women in pharmacy can actually have that support, that encouragement to be able to move forward.
Thank you so much, Gisela. So, well, very inspiring stories that are being shared so far. Catherine, this has been amazing. So I'll just give back the floor to you just to wrap up this session.
I know, Louise, honestly, what a privilege, really. And I think there's so much learnings here. You can see that we might have to do a follow-up in a few months' time to take forward what we're learning today. I'm pretty sure that the panelists today are sparking each other. I want to just mention a piece of work that's current at the moment, that is a policy statement from FIP, an update on our women and responsible use of medicines. When I first joined FIP in 2018, not only did we sign pharmacy up to the Astana Declaration, really to open up the access to universal health coverage through primary healthcare, through pharmacy, but also we spearheaded an essential piece of work under the leadership of President Carmen Peña, our first female president at that time, around women and responsible use of medicines. And we're updating that work now and really looking at women and men and responsible use of medicines. So I feel that's a nice little way of showing in 8 years how we can address that. I'm going to keep the final question I had to see if we've got time at the end of the session now, because I think it's one that would be really useful when we finish the session. But before we do that, I'm going to ask Noor to share with us the word cloud that we've seen. And can I just say, colleagues, that we've used the number of words we're allowed to use. So I think you've knocked it out of the park with the engagement that we've had in this regard. Honest to goodness, it's so interesting to see how engaging this event is. Now, for me, what I see here is progress. I also see words that I would expect, like equity, representation, women, obviously, inclusion. And then I see words that really are from the heart. Love is there. Love is all around. Someone should write a song about that. We have inspiration. We have life. We have fulfilling. We have empowerment, insightful, touching, pride, support. So I think there's three kind of categories of words that what today represents for us. There's the idea that we are moving forward. And you can take that from all of the panelists, that doesn't matter whether things around us change, doesn't matter whether our personal situations change or the organizations we're engaging with change. We keep our networks solid, we keep our engagement solid, and we grow and work together. And I think, Louise, that's really important for colleagues like yourself and myself. We go back decades in terms of where we first met. And I think that gives you this solid trust as you move through your career and journey. And then you can watch other people and be proud of their achievements. You can celebrate them. You can actually then look upon yourself and put a mirror in front of yourself and think about what you've done and celebrate yourself. And it also celebrating yourself without being over smushy about this. It means then we have the space and the place to honour and respect women in need and to see what other people don't have. I think that's really, really important. I think this is a really excellent word cloud, and I'm hoping that we can build from this in the report that we will provide for today. I also love really good words like busy and access and motivating. So that's really important. Thank you, team, for allowing both myself and Louise, I know that you will echo my words, Louise, with this, to really chair such an inspirational, motivating panel. We look forward to the remaining hours of our summit ahead. Thanks a million. Over to you, team.
Thank you so much, Catherine. That was very, very insightful. and very inspiring. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. And hello, I am Noor Al-Tahla. I'm FIP Equity and FIPWiSE Program Manager. And welcome to this summit again. It was great to hear all of these insights in the previous segment. And before we move on to the next one, we'd just like to pause for a few minutes to celebrate FIP's Equity RX program and the FIPWiSE initiative over the past 6 years. So what FIP really is it's an initiative that's delivered under our Equity RX program, which is FIP's program on equity and equality, and Equity RX on its own is a part of the RX family of programs, along with Humanity RX and Sustainability RX. And the RX suffix is there because we see it as our prescription to the world, a call to action for leveraging pharmacists to advance equity and equality in health. And so that's what Equity RX does. It was launched in 2018, and it supports the progress and implementation of our FIP Development Goal 10 locally, regionally, and globally. And it does this across the three main elements, which are education and workforce, practice, and science. So Equity RX really operates under the motto, pharmacy leaving no one behind. And it's a really large program encompassing many unique areas of work, all of which come together to support equity and equality for all, regardless of the social demographic and health identifiers and their intersectionality, the ones you see on screen. This program currently has 5 main program areas or areas of work, and these include gender equity, health literacy, maternal health, vaccine equity, as well as FIPWiSE, which is the main star of today's event and summit. And this is what FIPWiSE really aspires to do. It, in alignment with the UN Sustainable Development Goal 5 on gender equity, FIPWiSE aspires to champion and enable women in pharmaceutical sciences and pharmacy education to achieve their fullest potential. And the way it does that, as Bahija mentioned earlier, is that it gathers experts from around the world to identify the needs and the inequities faced by women in these domains, and then offer timely, achievable, and sustainable solutions. It's also really important to highlight that FIP, in official relations with UNESCO, established the FIP UNESCO UniTwin network in 2010, and it was the first UniTwin initiative in higher education for health professionals globally, and the first dedicated to the global pharmaceutical education. This network promotes an integrated system of research, teaching, training, and community engagement, facilitating collaborations among internationally recognized researchers and educators from our FIP academic member institutions worldwide. So under the renewed UNESCO agreement, 2023-2027, FIP has established regional centers for excellence across all WHO regions to support the transformation of pharmaceutical education and science at a regional level. And these centers for excellence really serve as platforms to champion women in STEM. So each regional center includes a FIPWiSE representative to ensure alignment with our vision and to embed gender equity across the initiatives. It's also really important to mention that UNESCO has commemorated this day under the theme From Vision to Impact, redefining STEM by closing the gender gap. To find out more about the network, please scan the QR code on the screen and it will direct you to the page. Before we move on, and before I hand over to Bahija, I'd just like to share a short video celebrating FIPWiSE achievements over the past 6 years. Thank you very much. Over to you, Beja. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was just really nice to see that video, see the journey. And yeah, it's very kind of took my breath away then. But colleagues, it's interesting because as part of the coordination and planning for this summit, I was so focused, along with the rest of the team, so focused on, let's make sure everything is right, the segments are right, the flow, the theme, the aim, all of that, and the right perspectives and the right balance, that when it was suggested that I share some reflections myself in my capacity as FIPWiSE chair, I found myself a little bit stuck because I think like a lot of us, we get so focused on the doing part of any thing that we're working towards. And I am like that as well. And I've been very focused on the doing and let's get going. Let's get to this point. Let's get to today for so many of our plans that I realized that I also hadn't taken time to reflect, to pause and look at the journey, not just on my own personal journey, but what we've all collectively achieved over the last couple of years, or the last 6 years, and then the last couple of years in my capacity as chair. So it's really nice to follow on from the beautiful video that we just saw there. So I'm not going to take too much of your time because I am prone to a waffle. So I have tried to structure my thoughts as best as possible. Just a few minutes, if you allow me, to just give you my reflections. So I am genuinely grateful for today, for everybody who's worked so hard to get us to this point, the panelists, everybody that's contributed their time across different time zones. So by training, I'm a pharmacist and a pharmaceutical scientist. By profession, I'm an educator, I'm an academic, a researcher, I guess, as a scientist. And by practice, I would say I'm somebody who works across systems connecting science, communication, and change, I hope. But my career hasn't followed a straight line. It's moved through research, education, regulatory environments, leadership, and across disciplines and continents. But through those experiences, I've learned something that many women here in this audience will recognize. Unfortunately, excellence alone doesn't always determine trajectory. Hard work does not always bring equal recognition, and confidence is not always received or perceived in the same way. There have been moments where I felt deeply supported, and there have been moments where I have felt invisible, like non-existent. There have been experiences where my voice landed differently depending on the room, or where my credibility had to be demonstrated repeatedly, which can be tiresome, again, as some of us in the audience will know. But unfortunately, these experiences are not unique to me. They are part of a wider pattern. And this is where we've had mentions about intersectionality, and this is where intersectionality becomes real. Gender does not exist in isolation. It exists and intersects with race, geography, socioeconomic context, disability, culture, and also career stage. These intersections can shape who is heard, who progresses, and who leads, and that's an unfortunate truth. We can't build inclusive futures for women and girls in science if we pretend that these realities don't exist. They must be acknowledged, they must be designed for and resourced. And that is something that really drew me to not just FIP, but the activities that FIPWiSE were doing, which was not shying away from those realities and those truths around intersectionality in the conversation when we're talking about looking at inequities. And so for me, being the FIPWiSE chair is not just about visibility, it's about stewardship. Over the past 2 years, I feel like we've been building up on the amazing and extraordinary work that had already been achieved by FIPWiSE. And we're not reinventing, we're not replacing, but we're strengthening and amplifying. We focused on strategic growth, alignment with FIP Broader's objectives, and really ensuring that FIPWiSE is not just peripheral, but integrated. And this has been welcomed, by the way. When I say it like this, I don't want to seem like we've had to claw our way through. Far from it. It's been really welcomed. FIPWiSE has been well supported in this focus of just alignment and making sure that we're more integrated. So as you can see from the video, over the past 6 years, and then, I said collectively 6 years, and I'll just say 6 years, but we've strengthened FIPWiSE's practical impact. So we've launched accessible learning tools, we've expanded stories, giving people platforms to share their knowledge, share their story, which we're also doing today as well. And then grounding our work in data through surveys and publications. We've also deepened collaborations across FIP groups, including by way of the 2025 Congress last year in Copenhagen, where we were looking at making sure equity discussions are integrated into broader professional dialogue. So today, the summit to me brings strands of all of that together. So today we're bringing dialogue, data, visibility, leadership, and global connection all in this summit. And, the work that we're doing isn't just about outputs. I don't know if you all will remember the iceberg, the iceberg success. You see the success at the top and then all the hard work, the crying, the tears underneath. But the work that we're doing isn't just about outputs. It's also about asking harder questions. How do we move from platform to influence? How do we ensure representation becomes decision-making power? How do we embed intersectionality as a design principle, not an afterthought? And so for me, serving as FIPWiSE chair is both humbling. Why humbling? Because leadership is always collective. There's no I in team. It's energizing, and I'm really containing myself right now just to appear professional, but I am so energized even just from this moment. It's energizing because it reaffirms that change happens when values and collective action align. So as we continue through this summit, through stories of resilience and forward-looking dialogue, I really invite all of you, all of us, to reflect on your own sphere of influence. Where can you sponsor someone? Where can you challenge bias? Where can you embed equity into your systems, into your own sphere of influence? And where can you make leadership more accessible than it was for you, right? That's a big point that I've been reflecting on a lot. So FIPWiSE moves forward, not just because of one person, but because of a collective commitment. And even for those of you joining the webinar today, you are part of that collective commitment. And I thank you for that. I am extremely honored to serve in this role. It means a lot. I may not always express it, but know that it's there. It's just I'm quite focused, but it means a lot. And I look forward to shaping the next chapter with all of you. And so I just want to say thank you. And now I will hand over to Emma, I believe. Thank you.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Emma Paulino. I will be co-moderating this session together with my colleague Naoko Arakawa. So I'm very glad to be here, and I've been very inspired by hearing all of the interventions so far, and hopefully we still have a few more inspiring messages to convey to you today. So we are very pleased to welcome you to this segment of this FIPWiSE Global Online Summit. And we are talking about voices of resilience and stories that inspired. So this session is designed to amplify authentic voices from across our global community and to reflect on how women in pharmacy navigate challenges, adversity, and change in very different contexts around the world. And for this, we have today's panelists, and it will be my pleasure to introduce the panelists to you today. I will keep the introductions very brief. I'm sure you can afterwards read about all these wonderful women online. So I will start with Andrea. Andrea, she's the FIP Global Lead for Competency Development and Director of Research, Policy and Partnerships at the Australian Pharmacy Council in Australia. So welcome, Andrea. Very nice to see you here today. Then we have Dalal Hamoudi. She is a common year coordinator at the KU Health Assessment and Accreditation Office at Qatar University in Qatar. Thank you very much for joining us today. Then we have Amanda, who's a chair of the FIP Hospital Pharmacy Section Program Committee. She's from the US. Thank you very much also for your presence here today. Then it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to Miranda Sertic. She's a Vice Dean for Science and Research at the University of Zagreb, Faculty of Pharmacy and Biochemistry in Croatia. In the next slide, you will see the wonderful pictures of Mariam Ghiazi. She is the academic capacity lead at the FIP UNESCO UN Center for Excellence in Africa and associate professor at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Ghana. Welcome. We have Rajani Shakia. Rajani is the lead at the FIP UNESCO UN Center for Excellence for the Southeast Asia region, and she's a professor of pharmacy at Kathmandu University in Nepal. And last but not least, we have Maram Haj Ahmad, president of the Jordan Women Pharmacists Forum from Jordan. So welcome everyone, and we are honored to have such a diverse and inspiring group of leaders with us today. And before we begin, we would like to hear from you once more. So you will now see a link here through the QR code, and also you can use this link to the website with the code that is shown on the slide. And we would like to ask you to please take a moment to answer the following question. So in one word, what most challenges your progress? So we will give you a few moments for you to participate. And the aim is to use the word cloud as a reflection point during the discussion that will follow. So thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. And I will now hand over to my co-moderator, Naoko, to begin with our first question.
Thank you, Emma, for the introduction, and greatly appreciated to have this opportunity to co-moderate this panel discussion with the wonderful women here on the Zooms and the monitor. And if you still trying to engage on the Mentimeter, that link is shared in the chat box. So please go through that while we are having the great discussion here. So thank you very much, everybody on the stage. So I would like to start the questioning first, Amanda, Mariam, Miranda for the first question. So can you take us back to a moment in your career or life when things didn't go to plan and then you had to find the resilience you didn't know you had? What was happening and what did the moments teach you about yourself? So can I ask you first, Amanda?
Yes, hi. Thank you for having me here today. I'm so honored to be part of this group of amazing women. So, a time in my life when things did not go as planned was during my fourth year of pharmacy school. So, I had 3 rotations left until I graduated with my PharmD. And in the first week of March in 2026, I found out that I had breast cancer. And so many of my coworkers and classmates were like, "What are you gonna do?" And I was like, "What do you mean? What am I gonna do? I'm gonna finish. Like I'm walking across this stage with all of you." And so really just for the next year, finding the resilience to undergo chemotherapy and radiation and surgery. I still finished my rotations. I did graduate with my classmates, and honestly the hardest part for me, and where I started, really having to look inside myself to get through this, was not getting a residency that first year either. And I thought, well, now not only have I gotten this diagnosis that has turned my world upside down, I also won't be going to residency. And, looking back, it's crazy that that's what I was focused on, but that's what I had been so focused on for the last 4 years, was who I was as a pharmacist. And during that year, I really learned that. Mainly because one of my big concerns was that, especially during rotations and when I was working, that my patients would see me as a patient and not as, the doctor of pharmacy that was supposed to be taking care of them. And throughout that year, I really learned that them seeing me as a patient and me being in the role of a patient made me such a better practitioner. It gave me an insight into what patients are going through, how in my role that I can help them even more. And really, showed me what I'm capable of and capable of going through. So, while it wasn't something I ever expected to go through, I wouldn't want to go through it again. It was such a learning journey for me, as a person and as a provider.
Thank you, Amanda. I'm so glad to hear that your personal story, and thank you so much for being here today, as you are here as a role model of the women in hospital, but the pharmacist as well, and the having such a positive impact on the colleagues and the healthcare system as well as the patients. That is wonderful to hear. Thank you, Amanda. I would like to ask the same question to Mariam now.
Right, thank you. And then thank you, Amanda, for such a lovely story. It's very touching, and you are quite resilient. So, yes, for me, it was about a decade or more ago during my PhD. I had done 2 years. There was a project that I was working on, and luckily I was awarded a fellowship to pursue some of the research or bench works in University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. So I was so excited, and I had about 2 years left to complete. And then when I started this, I realized that my project was no longer viable, and I had a very short time frame to throw away all that I had done and look for something new, aligned with the lab I was working in, and be able to complete all this within the short period I had to stay in the US before coming to Ghana. And during that period, I can assure you that it was quite traumatic for me, because I had to now venture into a new area of nanotechnology, which previously I wasn't an expert in. So I had to learn, teach myself, get support to be able to get a new topic, a new project. And I remember the first time that I successfully made some microspheres. I had a one-woman party. I was so happy. I was so excited, because then I could see the end in sight. Most of the time, women, we are afraid to fail. And then you wonder, would they take the fellowship away from you if you are not able to do this, if you are not successful? And so that was a very difficult time, but I'm so glad that looking back, I did it scared, but I did it anyway, and I graduated in time. Thank you.
Mariam, such a great story. Thank you so much for sharing. I can see that many the similar feelings relating to your feelings, that scary moments in your PhD, and that you had to be so resilient to go through and complete. I think your resilience was not only for the being the great researcher, but also the greatly contributing to the science and the healthcare as well. Thank you very much for your resilience. So Miranda, I would like to ask you the same question too.
Thank you so much, Naoko, and thank you for inviting me. It is always such a pleasure and honor, and it's an opportunity to get energized for the months that lay ahead of us. And thank you to both Amanda and Mariam for sharing their stories. Reflecting back on my time, maybe it's a combination of both stories. Yes, it was a period after obtaining my PhD when I was trying to balance everything. I was building my academic career, conducting research, teaching, publishing, and also trying to be fully present for my family. I was a mother of 2 small children at the time and going through some very challenging personal issues. And from the outside, it probably looked like I was managing everything, but internally, I was constantly stretched. I felt that I was never giving enough, not enough at work, not enough at home. When I was with my family, I was stressed and worried about the deadlines. When I was at work, I worried about missing all the moments at home with my family and my children. And living with that continuous feeling of not being enough is really exhausting. And it creates this persistent stress, the sense that you're disappointing someone, that you're divided between 2 worlds, and that nobody can fully rely on you. So eventually, my body responded before I did, mentally or emotionally or rationally. I became physically unwell from all the stress and burnout. I got so ill that I was hospitalized. I had to take a sick leave for weeks and weeks. And then I realized that the world hasn't stopped spinning just because I slowed down a little bit. And that was the moment that I realized that resilience is not only about constantly pushing forward, it is also about recognizing your own limits and redefining your inner strength. And yesterday we had this workshop at my faculty, and as an icebreaker exercise, the colleagues had to use this image that represents them. And almost all the mothers, women scientists, chose an image of this woman juggling, walking a thigh rope, balancing, holding children, a laptop, kitchen tools, papers, laboratory equipment. And our male colleagues, also fathers and also scientists, they chose this image of a joyful family moment to represent themselves. It was so striking that it actually sparked a conversation. And I'm not sure where this difference comes from. Is it social expectations that are placed on us externally, or is it something that's internalized over time? But I do know this, that we need to challenge this narrative that we must be this superhuman to be worthy. We really do not have to be superwomen 24/7. We are already extraordinary, and our effort is not merely sufficient, it is powerful, it is transformative, and it is valuable. So perhaps this true resilience is not learning how to juggle more, but learning that we are already worthy and just to put something down at some moments.
Thank you, Miranda. Such a strong story, isn't it? Showing from your faculty workshop as well. That, but like your strengths and resilience to actually showcase you struggle yourself, but actually having the continuing positive impact and the role models as yourself. I think that is really strong evidence here for the women. Thank you so much, Miranda. So I'm going to just give the floor back to Emma for the second question.
Yes, and thank you also very much for those powerful reflections and very inspiring. I would now like to turn to our next question, which is what is one challenge you have faced that is closely tied to your local, cultural, or systemic context, and how did you navigate it while still holding on to your ambitions? So I would like to invite first Maram Haj Ahmad and Rajani to share their experiences. So Maram, you go first.
Hi, how are you, Emma?
Hello.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure being among these all distinguished ladies. Thank you for the ladies for sharing their experiences, and I'm glad and proud to be among you guys. Ladies, sorry. To tell you the truth regarding the challenges, actually, I will tell you our story that we are in Jordan. Women pharmacists represent 70% of the General Assembly of the Jordanian Pharmacy Association. And in 2022, we had board elections for the JPA. And in these elections, we discovered that the system was not ready for women leadership inclusion. And that led to men only board of the JPA. At that moment, it was actually very disappointing. And it was a collective wake-up call for us in order for us to understand this fact that we are not being included, and the door was closed. So we decided we shall not stand in front of the door that is closed and waiting for inclusion. So we decided that we have to be resilient and we have to start our new system that aligns with our values. And then we decided to start Jordan Women Pharmacist Forum, and proudly I was one of the people who created it, and proudly I was elected as president. Now we have 600 member Jordanian women pharmacist members in our assembly, in our General Assembly. And to tell you the truth, establishing Jordan Women Pharmacist Forum has led to the second, when the second elections came, that 2025, all the candidates made sure that they have nominated women pharmacists in their list. And fortunately, we have now 2 women pharmacists representing us in our JPA board that was elected 2025. 2 is not a huge number, but after 0, I think we've made a great achievement.
For sure. Congratulations on that achievement. And now it only can get better. Thank
Hopefully.
you. So I will now turn to Rajana for her reply.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, and thank you for having me here. It's an honor. One challenge I have faced is mainly the advancing as a woman in pharmacy and academia in Nepal. Leadership roles are, as our previous speakers mentioned, are traditionally male-dominated, not only in my country, but in this region as a whole. And decisions are often influenced by networks or processes that aren't always transparent. For pharmacy professionals, these challenges are further complicated in my country by limited resources, regulations, and the ongoing effort to strengthen professions' recognition and impact. Clinical pharmacy roles in hospitals are still emerging over here. Structured mentorship is limited, and opportunities to lead are often slow to materialize. Addressing these challenges has required persistent effort from my side. Over the years, as a faculty member and as a department head, I have focused on improving training and learning opportunities for students, tried to strengthen pharmacy practice to my level best. Yet despite qualifications, dedication, and some tangible contributions, career often took longer than anticipated. In many institutions, leadership roles and strategic responsibilities are not always equally accessible. Progress can feel slower than the effort invested. And for women, balancing professional ambitions with family responsibilities, navigating these pathways can be particularly complex. Raising 2 young children while pursuing my career sometimes made me wonder if my efforts would translate into meaningful impact or opportunities. Over time, I realized that success required more than hard work. It required some thoughtful strategy, careful observation, persistence. I began paying attention to how decisions were made, qualities that leaders were valued for, and the ways I could contribute meaningfully. I sought mentorship, both locally and internationally, for guidance, perspective, and encouragement. And those mentors helped me see opportunities beyond immediate constraints, supported me in navigating complex professional landscapes. At the same time, I realized that growth could come from looking beyond my immediate environment. Political and hierarchical constraints, along with systemic limitations, could slow the progress, but I choose to broaden my horizon through my involvement with the FIP, first as AIM Advisory Committee member, and now with UNITWIN Center for Excellence. I gained exposure to new perspectives, collaborated internationally with wonderful colleagues. I polished my strategic planning skills. These experiences reminded me that even when progress is gradual or your pathway feels constrained, meaningful impact is always possible. But navigating these challenges require resilience, patience. So my journey taught me several important lessons, as I mentioned. First is systemic and cultural barriers exist, but with patience and thoughtful action, they can always be navigated. Resilience is not only about enduring challenges, but it's also continuing to grow, contribute, and lead when the environment isn't fully supportive. And lastly, mentorship and network. These are very important. These will open doors, provide guidance, and strengthen your journeys. These experiences have profoundly shaped my understanding of leadership. They have strengthened my commitment to mentorship, supporting other women, and creating opportunities for a meaningful contribution. I think that's all from my side.
Thank you, Rajani, and thank you so much for stressing the power of mentorship and also how FIP can be a platform for these interactions. I'm sure we will be able to talk more about this in the following sections. So now I'll go back to you for another question.
Thank you, Emma. So now I'm going to ask you, Andrea and Darrell, for this question. So who or what made the biggest difference during the difficult period for you, whether a person, a network, or a belief? So how did the support or the lack of it shape your journey? So can I ask you, Andrea, first?
Sure. First of all, thank you. It's a privilege and an honor to be among such esteemed colleagues and learning your stories and being inspired. I'm not at the brink of tears, but I am feeling very inspired and warm inside for all of the stories that we've been hearing about today. I think responding to your question is a little bit of both, in terms of it's all about people, but it's about finding your tribe. And I know this is really abstract to think about, but I think when I had challenging moments, I've reached out to peers, to mentors, to friends, female and male, but especially female when you think you're struggling. So it's really about offering that advice, that sharing the normalization of struggle, of thinking, of identifying what has happened. Oh, that happened to me before. And even in a personal and in a professional aspect, I tend to believe that I'm a little bit of a pharmacist, but I'm an outlier in the profession. My path is not normal. It's not one straight arrow, and it has a little bit of everything. And moving countries, moving continents, living in 3 different countries throughout, being a professional pharmacist and being a female, a person, but also I think I can still follow the trend of being a mother of 2, right? Or looking at all of the things that was said before. But it's truly about surrounding yourself with people that provide you with positive support, to challenge you to think about other things, absolutely, to challenge you, your constructs, challenge you to pursue different areas. And I have done a little bit of everything in terms of academia, NGOs, non-for-profit currently, private companies and businesses. So for me, it is a challenge to learn all of that translational things that you have to do. It feels like pharmacy is full of acronyms, and every time you change, even countries, the acronyms seem to follow you, but they don't mean the same thing, which is quite challenging and confusing. So surrounding yourself with what I call the tribe, it could be the village. We always say that it takes a village to raise kids. I think it takes a village to raise a professional. And I think several things that have been mentioned today in terms of finding your sphere of influence, talking about mentorship, really thinking about resilience as a reinvention of what you're doing and trying to do, reaching out to people, even if it's just a message. I can always think that we as women tend to be very responsive to messages to everyone and really trying to help one another when we can and build that network of people. And I've been very honored to be part of that journey, of professional journey, all the way through my association. And I've always been in associations with IPSF, FIP. So just hearing all of your stories of reaching out within FIP, staying connected and building all of what we've done, I think it's the most important aspect, is really finding mentors, talking about that, talking about opportunities of a collaboration, and offering those perspectives, even the struggle perspectives. We just listened to 3 or 4 different perspectives of a professional life where things got in the way and we had to push through. And we tend to believe that, yes, we are super women and super powerful, but I do think that grit, resilience comes inherited to all of us, and we juggle a lot, absolutely. So finding that aspect that help you through a difficult time, reaching out to colleagues, even if you believe that you shouldn't, and that's not the way to go. I can advocate that there's always a good sounding word on the other side of reaching out to anyone. So that's kind of like staying curious and leading through that uncertainty in your life. It has always taught me to push through and be successful in that sense.
Thank you, Andrea. I think your tribe, through your reachable, the nature, I can see that now your tribe and the village becoming bigger and bigger to make such a great movement for women to come together and then being resilient. Thank you very much, Andrea, being you always.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask Gerald for the same question.
Yes, hello, Naoko. Thank you, and thanks, Emma, and thanks to all the pretty, gorgeous, and thoughtful ladies who are sharing their stories today. And thank you for the courage for letting us to learn more and about you. It's a privilege to be here. I have been honored to join FIPWiSE 6 years ago when it was during its inception, and that was a really difficult time. It was the COVID time, and my country was passing through multiple crises. So if you think of a country with a crisis, you cannot imagine the coincidence that happened at that time at our country, of all the social, the physical, the financial, and the political issues coming along. And that actually was really a challenge. Coming to your question about challenges, the most challenging time for me was a transition time. I echo lots of the words and the ideas that have been said in this session about how we women navigate challenges. For me, it was like a couple couple of years ago, changing countries, changing cultures, even a career path which did not at times look like exactly a linear one, but rather with lots of juggling. Those are challenges I believe lots of us women do face, in addition to the mental toll that we bear always of having to juggle family responsibilities and professional life. If I would think about what had supported me through challenges, I can frame the support system maybe into three levels. So the first level would be, I say, and this is something I learned when I become an expat and having to spend lots of time alone. I think the first level comes from positive self-talk. We are what we believe. So if we always talk of ourselves that we are incapable and we are not doing enough, and we we are always worried about outcomes, we will get more worry. I think what helped me was to always try to be cool and easy on myself. We always try to be harsh on ourselves. We always think that we should know everything, we should be capable, we should always prove our credibility to the external surroundings and seek validation. For me, the challenge of all these started with thinking positively about myself, stop worrying about the outcome, trust the process, believe that I am doing my best, even if I'm not doing everything, but I'm doing my best. And also trust whatever comes next. If I am to talk to my younger self, I would say that I have achieved a lot and still capable of a lot. So this level of positivity in thinking had supported me. Another level, I totally agree with Andrea on the importance of having a community and a support system. A family and friends are always supportive. I can even tell you that my kids can sometimes support me, and this is something not really like we don't really notice. So having a community of support, not necessarily to give you advice, but maybe only to listen to you and see your thoughts. It's okay to be vulnerable in front of them. It's okay to mention what worries you. It's okay to describe and identify your feelings. This is like another level, because you are not alone in stress and in challenges, and you don't have to face the stress alone as well. So this was the second level. Another, maybe a broader level, I think we have to always be curious. We have to always think that we don't know more than the person in the other chair. Trying always to work on our learning, what we achieve, even if it's small steps, is always good for us. And whenever we do small progress, we have to celebrate that, to take a moment and acknowledge. So learning will always support us. Getting to know more our context in case we change contexts and we change jobs, getting to know more our context, even from people we might believe like will not help us. If we try a conversation and ask thoughtful questions, we will learn a lot. This is briefly what I can think about, and I hope it resonates with many women in science and pharmacy.
Thank you. Thank you, Dalal. Yeah, I'm going to just give to the Emma back to the final question.
Yes, and we might have to rush because we are getting out of our time schedule. But we do have a final question to all panelists, and I would like you to think about something very concrete and maybe ask you to answer in 1 minute, if possible. We would like all panelists to respond to what is one concrete way that the FIPWiSE community can better support women in pharmacy. And to inspire you to answer this question, we would like to show you the results from the word cloud, which we have put beforehand when we started our session. And hopefully these words will inspire you in your answer on how can the FIPWiSE community better support you and women all around in pharmacy. So I may use the order in which you are shown here in my screen. So first, Andrea.
Thank you. Imposter syndrome. That is kind of like the one that it's so big. And all women, I think we do have and still have. I think the thing that we can do and continue to build is these types of networks, is these types of session, is reaching out to our community and to our women and see how we can better support them, how we can become mentors and role models and connect them to the different international women that we have within FIP and within FIPWiSE.
Thank you, Andrea. And a lot of your reflections beforehand also reflected the importance of this network, this community, this village you were talking about earlier. Dalal? Would you like to go now?
Yes, thank you. I would say FIPWiSE should try. Yes, can you hear me? Okay, I would say seeing the responses and thinking about what has been said during the session, I think FIPWiSE next chapter would be to future-proof women towards what's coming next. The world has changed since 6 years ago when FIPWiSE started. Lots of things are happening, lots of changes are going on. With the digitalization technology and all things happening, I think women should be aware and should be ready to the next chapter.
Emma, you are on mute.
Sorry about that. I'm sure we will, and that's why it's so important that we support each other, and the FIPWiSE initiative is so important to provide this supporting network. Miranda, let me now go to you.
Thank you, Emma. Yes, exactly my point. I felt like FIPWiSE should continue with platforms like this one today because it really feels very powerful. It creates this space for our voices to share our experiences and to lead this sort of a conversation that perhaps sometimes you're lacking in your local environments. And having maybe some kind of a structured mentorship platform, a one-to-one relationship would be invaluable. Having someone that follows you on your journey, who listens, who advises, supports you constantly over time can sometimes really make this profound difference, you know. So having this community on one side that gives you a belonging and having a mentorship that provides direction for you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Rajani?
Yeah, thank you. I also think, thinking on the same line, if I think, in my opinion, one meaningful and practical way a FIPWiSE community can further support women in pharmacy is by fostering a structured, sustainable culture of mentorship and sponsorship that connect women across all stages, career stages, region, and area of practice. I'm aware that FIPWiSE is already doing so many great things in this regard. I still thought of emphasizing this. Mentorship is important for sharing experiences, offering encouragement, helping women to navigate in the pivotal moment in their professional journey. Sponsorship, on the other hand side, complement mentorship by actively advocating for women, increasing their visibility, opening their pathway to leadership, research. When mentorship and sponsorship operate together, they help women recognize their full potential, gain confidence, and advance their career with greater purpose and resilience by creating supportive framework that combines mentorship and sponsorship with targeted capacity building initiatives FIPWiSE can provide women with guidance, support, and skill to navigate professional challenges more effectively. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rajani, again for participating. Maram?
Hello. I think based on our experience, we believe the most concrete way FIPWiSE can support women is by creating a global governance and policy toolkit, especially for women in regions where professional syndicates are still evolving. Soft skills are not the main important issue now. Governance is most important that you can help us with. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's such an important aspect beyond what we have been discussing right now. So thank you very much for your suggestion. Very timely. Amanda?
I think I would love to see a strong woman toolkit to give us the confidence, as was mentioned, to positively speak about ourselves, to have the confidence that the 60% qualified man, as was mentioned earlier, has to go for those jobs. A lot of times we hear that you're a lot, or you're aggressive, or negative terms that in a man are changed to strong and forward thinking. And so, the confidence for females, especially those early in their career, to have and, to promote skills like how to ask for a raise, how to have these crucial conversations as a strong woman in this field and in any field, really, to be able to come out, have confidence, and advocate for ourselves.
Thanks so much. And those are very concrete examples and so important to convey. So thank you very much for your suggestions as well. So Mariam, we will finish with you.
All right. Thank you so much. And the ladies have said it all. I also want to touch on confidence. I know FIPWiSE and many other organizations have done so much in terms of advocacy and a lot to support us as women. There are so many opportunities out there for us, but the issue is, do we have the confidence to step up and lead to grab those opportunities? Because when women and girls step up and then we lead, we are able to cause the fall of certain barriers for other women and ladies who are observing us. And when we are in leadership positions, our voices are amplified and solutions to certain issues become more inclusive and more impactful. So for me, I believe that we need to, FIPWiSE can continue to encourage us to improve upon ourselves in terms of self-motivation and increase our confidence to be able to take up leadership roles. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for using our cloud word slide here also to think about your final words for this session. So thank you all so much for for sharing your stories, your challenges, your reflections with such openness. And these were very personal stories, not only about resilience at the but also coping and juggling the personal, the family, and all the other challenges that we also face in our wholesome life. So I believe that today's discussion has clearly showed that resilience looks different in every context, but also that community, visibility, collective action remain essential for advancing women in pharmacy worldwide. So, and for me, it has been very inspiring to hear from all of you. So on behalf of Naoko and myself, I would like to thank you all so much again, to our speakers, but also to our audience for being part of this conversation, for contributing your voices, for your suggestions for the FIPWiSE initiative. We know how hard it is to cope with all our expectations for ourselves. And it's so good to be able to identify that in other people so that we can relate and really talk openly and honestly about our setbacks, our challenges, but mostly how we together can overcome them. So I don't know if Naoko would like to say something to finalize, but otherwise we can now hand back to the main summit program.
Yes, let's move to the next segment. Thank you very much, all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emma and Naoko. And I'm going to hand over to Vibhuti next.
Thank you, Noor. I was taking notes furiously because there are so many amazing people and some of the things that everybody has touched on. There's a lot of inspirational stories and ways in which we can actually make a difference, particularly for women in the workforce. So we've heard a lot of stories, and I'm thinking how we move from some of these theory and ideas into actual action and pledges and commitment that we all can make, not only individually, but also within our own spheres of influence wherever we are. So I'm excited to co-moderate this next segment with my colleague, Mariette Eckstein. And we're gonna move on to introducing some of the amazing panelists that we have joining us, who we will ask for some specific commitments. So I want to introduce quickly Sally Arif, who joins us from Midwestern University in the US, Grace Na Ardua Nelson, who is the Regulatory Affairs Manager at Novartis in Ghana, Christina Chai, Professor in Singapore, Manjiri Garat, joining us from India, Pascal Salamé, who's one of our global leads as well for the FIP Hub, joining us from Lebanon, Emanuela Nzeribe, joining us from Nigeria as a research and policy analyst at the Light Research and Consulting, Aliki Pelatidi, who is an assistant professor, joining us from Greece. And I'm going to hand it over to Mariette. Go ahead.
Thank you, Vibhuti, and good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, everybody. And it's a privilege and a pleasure to be with all of you, and a warm welcome to this segment where we are for future-focused dialogue. We've seen from the past, we see the resilience, but now it's time to go from inspiration to action. So before we set off this segment for a last time, we ask you to contribute to this word cloud. And as you see from the previous sections, at the end, what you say now is very much aligned with what our panelists experience in reality. So let's test this theory one more time. And what we want you to provide us is, in one word, what will you carry forward from today? So as I've mentioned, the theme of this segment is future-focused dialogue. And we shift now from talking to walking. And part of it is for you to tell us what will you carry forward from today. So while you access the Mentimeter, I'm going to move forward and just explain to you what we want to do or to achieve today as we are approaching the end of this summit. And it's that we want to reach the point where we have an FIPWiSE or FIPWiSE commitment to women in pharmacy and in society. And as I said, we want to move from dialogue to action. And I think the previous speakers, Catherine, as well as Noor, as well as Bahija, explained to us that what brought us here today, it's the UN International Day of Women and Girls in Science. It's also the development goals of FIP on equity and equality. But more importantly, it's an opportunity for us to celebrate the resilience, to focus on what was achieved, but more importantly, it's to set up a pathway for us taking forward. So what is it that we're going to focus on? And all the contributions that you've made up to this point throughout this summit, both through our panelists, but also through our audience, is going to follow or build or form this underlying principle of our commitment. So as we engage, reflect, align, and also celebrate, we need a collective call to action, and that is what we aim to achieve. So with no further ado, the panelist has been introduced. So we've got 2 questions for our team in this segment, and I'm going to start us off with the first question. And the question is, what can we do as individuals and within our sphere of influence to shift the dialogue to meaningful action? So I'm going to ask for Grace to start us off, followed by Christina. Thank you, Grace.
Sorry to interrupt. So I'm just going to frame the conversation for the audience and our panelists. The way, because we know that this can seem very daunting. As we were discussing, we're like, what can we do? World peace, right? But the way we think about this is kind of if you visualize sort of 3 buckets of discussion. One, I don't know where I got buckets, but here we are. 3 groups of discussion. So one is thinking about policy-wise, whether that means individually, whether that means in your procedures and anything you're engaged with in your organization. So one is policy. What can we do on a structural policy level? Number 2 is programmatic. Perhaps you can put on programs. Perhaps you are in charge of directing programs. Perhaps you can bring speakers and programs and inspirational stories such as this to your sphere of influence. And number 3 is workforce development. We've heard a lot about mentorship today. So what are specific things we can do for workforce development? So think about framing, and we welcome the audience to enter the chat. I will be monitoring that. And so think about this. What can you do as individuals and within your sphere of influence in these 3 areas? Policy, programming, and workforce development. Take it away, Grace.
All right, so thank you. Thank you all so much for staying with us till this time. And I mean, for what we are going to talk about, some of the previous speakers have highlighted some in their previous submissions, but I just want to highlight 3 things within our spheres of influence. I think 3 things matter. 1, institutionalizing equity, not just advocating for it, not just talking about it when it's International Day of Women and Girls in Science, when it's International Women's Day, and then we go to sleep. No, we need to embed it into our policies. We need to embed it in our hiring practices, in our mentoring structures, and in performance metrics. Equity must clearly be seen. Secondly, sponsorship. Are we actively opening doors for the women and girls around us? Are we recommending these competent women and girls for opportunities and putting their names forward when the decisions are being made? Sponsorship is very, very key. And last but not the least is accountability. Setting measurable commitments and revisiting them regularly. So today we are going to be making commitments. We are going to say a lot of beautiful, nice things, but we need to hold ourselves accountable. Rather than letting our good intentions fade after this conversation ends, we need to revisit and measure what we said against what we've done. So these are the 3 things I think we should be doing within our spheres of influence to shift from dialogue to meaningful action. 1, institutionalizing equity. 2, sponsorship. And 3, accountability. Thank you. I don't know if my other speakers will add on.
Okay, so I'm just going to follow on from what Grace has said. And from my own experience, I have I've tried to change the policy when I was in a leadership position in my university, but this turned out to be much, much more difficult than one would imagine. So I have now have a kind of different mindset, right? Which is I'm going to start as an individual and talking about spheres of influence, right? You're going to be a good role model for the younger women students, for example. And I think that actually it can all start by giving our younger generation of women confidence. They do not have the confidence to step up.
And as a consequence of this, if you don't start them when they are young, and then this basically builds up to when they get into higher positions or go into the workforce, there is a reluctance to actually speak up. So from the context of my junior colleagues in my department, I feel that a really good way to actually start to improve, equity and everything else is to get them involved in leadership roles. And a lot of them that I had spoken to do not believe they are good enough, or they don't really want to go into the trouble of being involved in the event that they fail, I guess. Okay. And failing when you're a woman seems to be much more painful than if you fail and you're a guy, because most guys would not take it personally. Okay, so this is kind of like a mind set shift. Okay, so the issue is about embracing opportunities, right? And if we are able to embrace the opportunities, then we make a start. So I tell the students and my junior colleagues, failing is okay, because you will learn a lot from failing. So I've kind of come to this time when I think that although I would like to do all these wonderful things and get the university to change their policies to promote women in who clearly deserves it, try and look at positive positive sort of I guess carrots to be able to encourage people. It's much more difficult, and it is easier to start from the level that I'm in. So that's basically kind of what I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Christina. Appreciate it. I'm moving now to my friend Pascal, as well as Sally, to give your perspectives. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to thank the FIP for giving me the opportunity to be here. I would like to say that I come from a Middle Eastern country, and I think that this aspect has not been tackled yet in our talk today. So in a Middle Eastern country in general, you know that there is an imbalance in the roles of males and females. And this imbalance, well, it affects everything. So if we want to work on empowering women, we should start very early. And this is a very important point, because socioeconomic, cultural, even taboo, religious issues, they all affect the way people think and the society behavior and attitude. So if we want to change things, it is here where we should start. And in my opinion, starting with the education of girls, to give them more life skills, more mindfulness, more autonomy and confidence. And it is there where they will become inspired by other women. Because if they don't have the courage to become champions, even if they have some models or role models, they will not have the courage to act. So I think it starts here. Now, mentorship, networking, all these are important, but I think education is a must. Second point, for pharmacy, I would like to say that we have a majority of women in the profession. We are around 75% women. However, if you look at the leadership positions, well, this is not the case. So it's not a matter of quantity, it's a matter of also quality. Who's the champion who has the courage to lead? And having the courage to lead means we should first not be afraid to get involved in politics. And what I mean in politics mean that it's the strict sense of politics, getting into sometimes some problematic issues, problematic positions sometimes, have an inclusive leadership, which is not easy, particularly in countries where we have an imbalance at baseline, and be able to make decisions, because men will not make decision for us unless we are there, we fight for these decisions, we lobby for these decisions, and then we can get them. And if we are in this position, it would be much better. And my final point is about the science and education in pharmacy. You know, we teach our pharmacy students all. We teach them the same program. And we have lots of excellent women and excellent men. But if you look at what happens next, whenever you have, for example, the experience of COVID, who were the leaders? They were mainly men who decided to take the leadership position, who decided to be public health voices of pharmacy. They were men. Sometimes the job was well, sometimes it was not well done, but it was mainly men. So I think that having transferable skills given to pharmacy students and really focusing on re-establishing the balance between men and women, and really focusing on women and giving them more possibilities of becoming public health leaders within pharmacy, of course. I think that this might be a good way in order to really improve the women involvement in policies, in programming, and in workforce development in general. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Just to layer on to these beautiful gems I'm hearing from my colleagues, Grace, Christina, and Pascal, we've heard a lot today about mentoring and role modeling being very important in this discussion. One thing that, I guess another M that I want to bring into the conversation is the moral courage that I didn't really appreciate earlier in my career as an educator and practicing pharmacist. But really, after reflection of the last 2 decades in this space, I've realized moral courage is something that also can be modeled and role modeled and mentored throughout. But really, that for me has been looking in my sphere of influence. Where do I hold power to actually make change happen? Not just talk about it, but actually do the walk. But also thinking about who are my allies along the way? Who have been the individuals that I have been able to sit in a room with and think safely out loud and say the craziest things that I would never want to say because I would feel judged for it? Who have encouraged me through moments of imposter syndrome? Who have been the people that have told me, actually, and as women, we don't talk about this enough, is rest. That rest is actually part of resistance sometimes. Rest is essential. That it is not to be seen as a weakness when we need to take time out in our lives or in our careers to take moments where we actually recalibrate and recharge our batteries. To say that that's actually a strength point and to encourage me to take that rest when needed. To say, even when my voice is shaking, to say what is the scary thing to say in the room, to encourage me and say it anyway. And for me, that moral courage is something that I'm now talking to my mentees about more and more, is what are your values and how do they align to your capacity and willingness to make action happen? And I really do believe action is contagious. And that it's okay to be vulnerable around, and we've heard this today, failing forward, right? Not just the success points in our careers and our professional lives, but actually where we felt like we didn't meet up to the standards, or we felt like we were failing at certain aspects. As an educator, now I am much more vulnerable. That word vulnerability comes up a lot. And as I've surveyed students in educational research I've done around vulnerability, it's interesting to me to see a gender difference, that often women see vulnerability as a weak point. When really, why don't we flip this narrative or script on vulnerability and say that's actually how we show our truth? That's actually how we celebrate, as a mother of a child with a disability, that shows up every day in my work, as a community member that's trying to be an activist, as someone who has a refugee immigrant status in the United States. Those types of things show up in how I am creative and innovative and bring my unique self to the table. And so vulnerability, I think, is another important aspect of this idea of having moral courage and bravery as we have this conversation of moving just ideas into actual action.
Thank you so much, Pascal and Sally. And then the last three ladies is Aliki, Emanuela, and Manjiri. Thank you. Aliki, you are still muted. Apologies for interrupting you.
So I'm very happy to be here with you and is an honor to contribute in this dialogue because in my point of view, moving from inspiration to action is not a symbolic shift. It is a structural responsibility. And since 1857, when women demanding dignity, rights, and equality, generations have passed. Yet the core of that struggle remain alive. Today, women in science are not fighting merely for participation. We are fighting for influence, for leadership, which is mentioned before as well, and for structural authority within the systems that define the future of healthcare. On this International Day of Women and Girls in Science, the question is not whether we are inspired. The question is whether we are prepared to transform systems. That brings me clearly to the first question that you just asked before. So moving from dialogue to meaningful action requires more than advocacy. It requires measurable structural intervention. As a pharmacist, as an academic, and as a person in university that coordinate MPharm program and postgraduate programs, I do not see action as a rhetorical commitment. I see it as institutional responsibility. Moving from dialogue to meaningful action means this, in my point of view. We must redesign the systems we influence so that equity, merit, research leadership, and innovation are structurally embedded, not aspirationally discussed. At the level of policy, this means implementing transparent, competence-based advancement systems, both in academia and in professional pharmacy governance. It means ensuring equitable access to research funding. It means positioning women not only as members of committees, but as decision makers in regulatory bodies, hospital leadership, and professional associations. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 5, which is about gender equality, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls is not symbolic, it is strategic. Without gender equality, there is no sustainable innovation. Without inclusive leadership, there are no resilient health systems. And SDG 5 intersects directly with the other SDGs, such as SDG 3 on health, SDG 4 on education, SDG 8 on decent work, and 9 on innovation. If hierarchy outweighs merit, SDG 8 weakens. If innovation is resisted culturally, other sustainable goals weakens. So if pharmacy practice research remains undeveloped, the SDG goal about health weakens. So we must ask, are promotion systems competence-based or tenure-based? Are we rewarding contribution or preserving comfort? Are we strengthening professions or protecting structures? In some European contexts, professional progression still depends heavily on seniority. Authority may be inherited rather than earned. When hierarchy outweighs merit, innovation slows. And when innovation slows, women's advancement slows with it. At the level of programming, meaningful action means embedding pharmacy practice research, digital health competence, artificial intelligence literacy, and leadership development into the core architecture of education and professional development. These are not optional themes. They define the future of the profession. At the level of workforce development, it means cultivating intentional mentorship and challenging hierarchical cultures that suppress younger professionals. In some systems, the older generation does not sufficiently encourage the younger ones. That is not sustainable, and this is not competitive, and that does not align with the Sustainable Development Goals. Dialogue becomes action only when systems change. And as academics, our sphere of influence is powerful. We design curricula, we supervise research, we sit on committees, we shape evaluation frameworks. If we do not use that influence deliberately, then we remain part of the inertia we criticize. For me, action is a structural redesign.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here, not just as an early career, but also to be part of the women that are able to share my own experience and something that I think that we can do as women in our own sphere of influence. So I'm thinking as an early career, and I'm thinking of how do we the need for us to actually make sure that we create those opportunities for women to not just by advising young people or young girls, telling them that, oh, you should come in, do this, do that, not just mere advice. But I'm also thinking, how do we ensure that even when there is an opportunity for a grant, you can call in a young person, a young lady, to come in and also apply for the grant and walk her through that grant application as a professional. I'm also thinking of how about writing or co-authoring an article, a research article with a mentee or a junior staff at your organization and all of that. So those are some of the actual actions that we actually need to take and put in place. Another thing I also mentioned is, which I believe has been mentioned everywhere, is literally the mentorship and institutionalizing mentorship. And I'm saying this because last year, it was actually from 2024, as at the time when I was the president of the Early Career Pharmaceutical Group in FIP. Thankfully, we were able to have a collaboration with FIPWiSE, which I'm sure we might have seen during the FIPWiSE achievement, that we had the Pathfinder mentorship. And that is a big thing because we collaborated with FIPWiSE as well as other sections within FIP to establish this mentorship, not just establish, but to also have more mentors who are willing to mentor younger people to give them that structured pathway for early careers to gain some global insights and learn those leadership skills. So aside, giving advice and letting people know you need to build your confidence and every other thing in between, there is also that actual, guiding the young person to be involved directly in what is also going on. So that is something I wanted to add. The second thing I also want to talk about is the existing frameworks, the existing toolkits. How do we ensure that they are not just on the policy paper or in books, but we are also enforcing them. We are implementing them. That's also very important. So if it's not being implemented, if it's not being enforced, then we are literally not doing we are just going in cycles. So that's also something that is very important and something that we can do in our own sphere of influence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, FIP, for this invitation. I'm very pleased to be here. And this has been a very powerful session. I feel very overwhelmed I agree to all my colleagues who have said about how can we transfer the meaningful dialogue into a meaningful action. Totally agree. What Vibhuti said, that how can we be, at the three levels we can think of, the policy, the program, and the workforce development. I'll not touch upon the policy first. I come from India. And when I started working in the bigger spheres, when I started working in the area of pharmacy practice, training of pharmacists, way back in, say, like 2003, 2004, the room was always full with all the male pharmacists. Once I was in eastern part of India, and you won't believe there were a big hall full of 1,200 pharmacists, and I was the speaker, only lady in the whole big hall. I was trying to see if I can see some women pharmacists. There weren't. So I realized that it is very important to involve the pharmacist. So leadership comes much later. But first, you need to be more inclusive, and you need to involve the women pharmacist. It's not that they were not there. The percentage of women pharmacists in India is much lesser, growing now. But then I realized that it is very essential to first activate them, give them confidence that they should be part of the bigger spheres, and they should be in the projects, in the programs, in the events. And I started working for that. And then FIP has been my inspiration. I was part of Women in Pharmacy programs in FIP, like it was before 2010, I remember. And that inspiration coming from FIP and what I see in India, it put together. I was working with the Indian Pharmaceutical Association, and I became the first vice president of Indian Pharmaceutical Association in 2012. Believe me, it was in 73 years of the association, we did not have a woman vice president in IPA, even though India had its woman prime minister back in 1973. So that was not in pharmacy profession. So then, since then, I've been trying to involve the pharmacist in every program, and then trying to encourage them for the leadership, and not giving injustice to the men, but not being biased, but looking at the merits, consciously encouraging the women, trying to look for them. And then I ran two programs. One was Contraceptive Information Leaflet Project, where I could involve a lot of women pharmacists, and we could have dialogue with the women in the society, giving them information about the contraceptives. This was totally woman-centric project which I ran back in 2009. And it gave me a lot more confidence that yes, women can be involved, and your meaningful dialogue with them. Pharmacists can be convinced, and you can bring them together, and you can take them to the higher level. With your sense of, the purity of the purpose, your conviction and your persistence really matters. And you have to create safe space for them. And then that can be then there can be very good outcomes. So I think there is lots to do, and we can be successful in our areas when we are persistent. And so that's what right now from me, and then more can be later. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think that one of the things that I've been noticing is this idea that's embedded throughout this, which is all of us, first of all, very inspirational. Second of all, really understanding how the structures can be changed. So I've heard a lot about confidence, education, courage, structural authority and changes, transformation, and as we're talking about this, what really is showing up in all of your comments are fostering a culture of development and discovery, perhaps, for young women, for people coming through, not just talking about it one day a year, but really fostering that. I think, Grace, you started us out with some sponsorship. And so I'm going to ask you, and the audience, please feel free to use the chat and chime in, because I'm curious about your thoughts as well. In one sentence, what is a commitment that you can make to actually implement these changes? And it can be anything small, from talking to a mentee next week about, we're going to put an application in, or what we talked about with like bringing somebody in for that grant, right? Sponsoring, that's the same kind of thing Emanuela talked about, is like, let's actually bring them in and show them the process of how this stuff is done, not just talk about it, inspire them, and then they go back to the same reality. So in one sentence, what is a commitment that you can make to implement a change? And we're going to start with you, Christina.
I am going to talk to my research assistant to tell her how good she is. Okay. She is better than she thinks. Okay. I'll do that tomorrow.
Amazing. Pascal.
As a researcher, I would commit to generate evidence related to the role of women in society in general and in pharmacy and patient health. And also as a responsible of the scientific committee at the Order of Pharmacists in Lebanon, I would be able to commit to act on the competencies of pharmacists within initial and maybe continuing education for pharmacists to improve leadership, mainly leadership and entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Amazing. Grace, take us away with your sponsorship and accountability. Let's hear it.
Okay, so I'm going to continue my mentoring, especially of women and early career professionals. And I'm happy to say for 2 years running, I've been a mentor in the FIPWiSE ECPG Pathfinder Mentorship Program, and also a mentor for IPSF. So yes, it's something I'm already doing, and I'm happy to hold the hands of more early career professionals or younger professionals to guide them through. And also, when there's a need for sponsorship, put their names forward. Thank you.
Okay, girl, go ahead. Aliki, what about you?
Yeah, in my point of view, the basic thing, because I'm in academia, apart from research, is to teach them how to stand, how to improve themselves, and how to have the confidence to be at the forefront. Because I see very talented women, future pharmacists, but they have the fear to stand. So for me, this is the most important, for us to be role models to them, to go out in the community and stand.
Amazing. Sally?
So hard to do this in one sentence without giving context, right? I think going to this idea of sponsorship, this is where we speak other people's names in rooms that they don't sit in. That's different than just mentorship. So I think knowing that in the coming week, as a faculty member, professor, I'm on several committees at my university. How can I make a charge for myself that at every single committee meeting, if there is a space for someone to speak at a programmatic event or be part of a policy change or bring their insights and voice that are not at the table to the table, how can I speak their name very loudly as someone that I'm suggesting? That I think is the essential piece. And sometimes that means it's not someone who has credentials. It is a student that I feel would be perfect to stand in that role, and someone who doesn't have the status and letters after their name, but someone who I see as a valued member of our campus community that should be at the table.
Beautiful. Really identifying that power dynamic and uplifting people. Amazing. Emanuela?
So I learned something from Pascal when she spoke about education. So one thing I'm going to be doing, at least within this month and the rest of the year, is that I would position myself to visit some schools and then talk to the young girls about going to inspire them and teach them that they can be very confident and they can get and do everything that they set out to do for themselves.
Beautiful. Manjiri, take us home.
Hi. Yeah. So this has been an ongoing journey, finding the right candidates, finding the women who are capable and improve their capacity and influence them so that they get activated. Give your enthusiasm to them. So enthusiasm should be very infectious. And so you activate them and make them work so that they go up in their career, and you feel very happy to see that. So as a teacher, as a head of the institute, and in a professional association, as well as social organization, I keep looking for the women or girls or the students and try to uplift them. And that's a pleasure to see that they are rising in their careers and contributing to the society and the pharmacy profession. So I'll keep doing that.
Beautiful. Yeah, so we've heard a lot of really inspiring things. I think one of the things I think about also is that being there for each other. I think all of you kind of touched on this as well. So this is not just about role modeling, but really showing up with courage and vulnerability for folks. The world is on fire, it seems, and we've been through many fires before as well. And our ancestors have given us everything that we need to continue forward. So I think that one thing that stands out to me also, wherever your sphere of influence is, whether it's with students, colleagues, mentees, knowing that you see them is really, really important. So knowing that we can be there for them, that we can acknowledge, we're not going to solve everything in one day, but it will be really important for us to really show solidarity and have that collective understanding, acknowledgement, and really inspiration to move forward. So I'm very inspired. I'm feeling really good right now, and I hope you all are as well. So I'm going to actually move this over to another amazing woman, Dahlia, to close us out.
Thank you so much, Vibhuti. I feel absolutely privileged to have been part of this inspiring event. I feel a little also emotional because I'm coming kind of towards the end and have listened to all the amazing thoughts and inspiring stories by all of my sisters and colleagues from around the world. I'm really touched, Vibhuti. I really, really am. I'm delighted to have been part of the organizing group for this event. I'm so thankful to my team, for Catherine, for FIP. But before even saying any further emotional comments from me, I must really acknowledge that I'm deeply honored to serve FIP in my role. And I really value that I can also bring to my team and to the leadership value. This is my takeaway from today as well. I'm honored to work alongside inspiring women, colleagues, and committed male allies, as Catherine said earlier, from around the world and generations. And I feel privileged and really feel accountable for the responsibility that I have on my shoulders as well, working for this amazing organization, truly. I think, Vibhuti, there's a word cloud that we can put up and we could reflect on together. Thanks a million, Noor, who is behind the scenes with a 3-month-old baby leading us and guiding us through the slides today. Thanks a million, Noor, for being behind all of this amazing work. So I don't know, Marie, Vibhuti, and colleagues, I see the word commitment. I could start with a couple of reflective words on that. I see the word commitment coming quite strongly, and that's really encouraging. I'm not surprised. But for me, commitment, I think, means intention. It means that we care. And if I may add one more word, and it is modeling, or in other words, walking the talk. And I say this not only as a colleague in senior position at FIP, but also as a mother of 3 beautiful daughters. The words here in the cloud are not abstract to me. They are words that I hope that my daughters will inherit. I hope that they're able to, I hope to carry these words home with me, even though I work from home. But they are words that I would like my daughters to inherit, that's for sure, as they take on this world, a world on fire, Vibhuti, that you said earlier. Okay, and whilst commitment is powerful, coming through really strong in this word cloud, I really cannot see it without modeling. So that commitment does not just become a set of words or quite rhetorical. You ask a question: what can we do in our spheres of influence? In my sphere of influence, my commitment is modeling authentic leadership, soaked up with kindness, just soaked up with kindness for everybody around us. And I want my daughters and all of my women colleagues to experience not just speaking about empowerment, but truly living it. It's not just a word, truly living it. These are my 2 pennies, my dear colleagues, from FIP and as a mother and a female colleague. Thank you so much.
I know, just holding back the tears. Thank you so much, everybody, for being part of this. Really, really appreciate it. And thank you for those beautiful words of reflection. I will say it's a testament because she's an amazing mother. Her daughters are truly amazing. So it actually gives me a lot of inspiration as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Also from my side, it's amazing. And as I said in the beginning, look at the look at the parallel between what we said in the beginning of the session and what came from our panelists. So it's amazing. This was truly an honor to be with you. I think our actions has been set, and let them now talk louder than our words. And with that, let's give back to Noor and the team for the final reflections and closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, co-moderators. Thanks a million, colleagues. Noor, we're delighted, and it gives us great pleasure to hand back to the FIPWiSE chair, but also our very own Dr. Catherine Duggan, our Chief Executive Officer. Over to you, colleagues.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to everyone. And over to you, Bahija. Thank you.
Thank you. We've been talking about holding back tears. Let's see what happens in the next few minutes. Good luck to me. But no, wow, that's part one of my reflection. I had hoped I'd be able to sort of end my reflection with my own commitment, but there's I still need a little bit more time. I still need to understand because there's so much. And I think one of the things that I get overwhelmed with, and I feel like I'm in a safe space, and we can all sort of, I feel that this could be, this could touch somebody as well. It's like, it feels that there's just so much to do, and it can be a little bit overwhelming because you want to help in many different ways, but you have to pause, you have to reflect and see where you can add value. And I think what I've gained from just seeing how this summit has gone is, one, we were right that there is a need for this. So it's nice to be a little bit right, but we were right that there was a need for this. And I think we've all collectively heard that, you know, and seen that. But also something that was very encouraging is the audience participation and some of the things that came out. You know, I'm just looking at some of the mentee boards, like imposter syndrome, things around empowerment, you know, just like many different things, and also the panelists and everything that they shared. I think really the insights from everyone, the panelists, the discussions, the chat, the interactive reflections is what has really made it for me. And I really just want to say thank you for that. In terms of next steps, really looking ahead, FIPWiSE will continue to build on this momentum. And I'm going to actually even touch on that after we've heard from Catherine, because there's some of the things that were coming out in the discussions that I'm very happy to see that we've incorporated already in the next little thing that we're doing, not so little. So really, we want to build up from this momentum, strengthen our partnerships, keep this commitment, this collective action moving forward. I think there was even conversation about like we needing the data to kind of drive initiatives and things like that. But really and truthfully, this has been better and more than I thought it could ever be. So the summit has really reaffirmed a simple truth. Equity is not a destination, it's a continuous practice, one that demands our courage, collaboration, and commitment. And so with that, before I get even more emotional than I am, I'm going to hand over to Catherine, who, again, I just want to even say a personal thank you to you for your support, your encouragement as well, and your openness and your leadership. I really do appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Well, Bahija, the pleasure is all mine. And I think I've got a few little comments and reflections to make. And I think maybe they're just going to be exactly the same as many of the thoughts in the room. But I just wanted to mention, colleagues, earlier on, I spoke about the Women and Responsible Use of Medicines that had been spearheaded by our first female president. I'm the first female CEO, but I'm not the first female to inhabit a CEO position at FIP, and that goes to Emma Paulino, who held the ship of FIP until I came into position. And I think there's something about recognizing the amazing women in this call, in this summit, but also the amazing women who are holding silent positions of leadership everywhere and often don't get recognized. So I've taken four main observations and reflections from today's summit. I've seen a lot and heard a lot about individuals feeling like they're imposters, imposter syndrome. And I think a lot of us feel like that for all the reasons that have been said today, and I don't need to rehearse them back to you. But also, I wanted to say that a lot of that leads to insecurity, and then people in positions of leadership can draw the drawbridge up behind them, and they don't necessarily support the people who are around them. So I wanted to say that I commit to everyone on this call and the entire profession that we will move from rhetoric to reality with our concepts and our ideals on equity for everyone, women, women in science and education, men, men in science and education, the entire profession. Every little bit we can do for that, we will do. And I really, really commit to that so that FIP doesn't suffer institutionally from imposter syndrome by talking a nice talk and not delivering it. For that, colleagues, we can't do to you, we can do with you and for you and alongside you. Second, spheres of influence. Pascal said it really well. She spoke about the concept of politics being political. So FIP is an apolitical organisation. That means we do not get involved in nations' politics. We do not try and influence with our own politics. So here's a thought, colleagues. Politics is all around us. Politics influences every single thing we do. And when we say we are apolitical, it doesn't mean we're not engaged politically. It means that we're speaking from values rather than biases. It means we're speaking from doing the right thing in the right way rather than doing the things we want to do in the way we think they ought to be. So I commit to you today to be equitable in all we do and to lean into politics where it's appropriate so that everyone has access to the safe medicines they need and the support they need to be able to be the best professional they can be. My third commitment to you was something I think we're all feeling, and some of us have alluded to it. Let us not be shocked or surprised when rights and power are taken from us. Let us expect that so that we meet that challenge very strongly, very calmly, and with evidence and evidence of impact. So when our governments or anyone in positions of power seek to take rights away from our communities, from our peoples, from our profession, we're ready with evidence. We're prepared, and that we're able to speak where we need to with one voice, or at least in harmony. We will sing the message that we want to give. And my final one, and I think this comes from what Manjiri said. Manjiri, you're such a role model to many of us. It's about gaining light from others' successes. It comes to my first point, I think, about having the confidence to lead when you're in a position of leadership, whether that be like Ella, when you're an early career pharmacist or pharmaceutical scientist, all the way through to holding positions of power. Let us not describe each other as too much, too clever, too loud, but let's move that word to T-O-O to meaning as well as, meaning alongside, meaning together. And really to end with the words of Bahija, let us collectively try to be better and more than we expect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you for those words. That was, oh yes, lovely. Thank you. Oh, this has been lovely. So thank you, everyone. Before you go, please don't go yet. I know I sound like I'm trying to keep you all here. Yes. Okay, so I want to share some exciting news about the next FIP Congress. So this is going to be in Montreal, Canada, 30th of August to the 2nd of September. Some exciting news. And yes, please could I invite all the panelists to turn on your camera? Let's just let everyone see your faces. But yeah, very exciting news. FIPWiSE will have a session at the 2026 Congress. Very excited, but I'll tell you why I'm even more excited, because it seems like the topic we're focusing on is very in line with what's been discussed today, and that makes me very, very happy. So we're looking at the title of our session is Collaboration for Equity, Reimagining Leadership and Partnership in Science and Education. We've got two very amazing speakers. I'm going to keep some suspense. I'm not going to tell you who they are yet. We've got some amazing speakers, but where Yes, as Vibhuti said, we're going to discuss more, but where I want to also highlight is we're going to have a very interesting panel session: mentorship, sponsorship, and partnership as enablers of equitable One Health leadership. So in the Congress last year, 2025, we had a conversation about mentorship. It just came up. And we also said, is mentorship enough, or do we need sponsorship? So just as a, let me give my little tagline in time for the session. Mentorship is somebody that guides you. Sponsorship is somebody that gets you through the door. And do we do enough of one or the other? And are we at different stages in our career, you need one or you need the other? And I'm just really excited that we're going to be getting an opportunity to talk about this at the Congress. But obviously there'll be other sessions as well. But of course, I know that you'll all be at ours. Very excited. Thank you. I believe there's a next slide, if I'm correct. Yes, so just to highlight that there are 3 sub-themes. So integrated health, innovating with purpose, and collaborating for equity. So our session is strongly in sub-theme 3. There's some important dates there. So there's an abstract submission deadline, 18th of March. Then the review outcomes of the abstract submission will be revealed by the 17th of April. Then you've got the early registration fee, so that's a little bit cheaper. And then the second registration fee, 12th of August. And then hopefully we shall all meet in Montreal. So bang on time. I want to say thank you so much. And we will see again. There's much more to follow. This has been a great foundation for just everything else. I'm going to let you guys go, but it's been lovely. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Good night, good morning, whatever time.
Thank you.